form, and he loves it there, so I'm not going to touch him. We just want to explore what works, and apparently this family had figured it out. So let's learn from them. How did their journey, their ups and downs, their struggles, their success stories, their tips, and do's and don'ts. Yeah? Alright, so with that, I would like to invite Amy, our moderator, and our first forum panelists, David, KB, Haslinda, and Mr. Su. We have, yes, Mr. Su to represent them, because I have that question, how do I approach my parents? So, okay, I'm going to move that mic.
Okay, good morning everyone, and I'm so glad to see all of you here today, and I want to thank Sheila for organizing this. Today's panel, the one that we have up here, is really about answering basic questions that you have about homeschooling, the ones that we hear most often about how to do it. If you have more specific questions and we don't answer them during this time up here, there will be a question and answer session that you can ask them. And I suppose if you don't get to ask your question, then there's a break afterwards, so you can approach the speakers here and ask them as well. So to start with, we should introduce ourselves. So I'll start with myself, and then we'll just go down the panelists. I'm Amy, and I'm a mother of two, and I've been homeschooling for 2 years. And I was just like you. I attended a homeschool conference organized by David here, actually many years ago. And I didn't know anything about homeschooling. And after the conference, I was very privileged that several homeschoolers actually came to my center and started to take my critical and creative thinking classes. So I had, I think, almost 10 years to observe them, see what they're like, meet their parents, watch them grow up, see how they turn out. So by the time my kids were at that point where we have to make a decision, are we going to put them in school or are we going to homeschool, we pretty much had made up our mind that we wanted to homeschool them. So that's me. I'm going to pass it to, let's go with David first and just go down the row to introduce yourself. Can you just tell us like how many children you have, your homeschool background or experience, and what was it that made you decide to homeschool?
Yeah, I have two boys. My oldest is 26 and he's just married. I have the second one, Alex, who's here, and you'll be hearing him shortly. We've been homeschooling all our lives. We started homeschooling when they were already 3 or 4 years old, at the time that we were supposed to go and register our kids in the kindergarten or the primary school, but we skipped that, and we've kept at it all the way until they were in high school and they were moved on to college and all that. So yeah, that's pretty much my journey. So here I am. Yeah.
Good morning, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Homeschooling father, and 3 kids, 20, 19, and 12. They have been homeschooled almost all their lives, with the exception of my eldest daughter. She took a few years holiday to go to school for 2 years and then came back. Just to take a break from homeschool, but enough for parents. Okay, so yeah, we had it in our minds to have a different approach to education. Before our kids was born, before they were born, I actually thought of starting a school. Wrote a paper, get other people to support me. Then when it hit the wall is called Ministry of Education. So we went there. We all sorts of conditions to try to fulfill. We cannot. So I said we give up. We do something else. And we explored schooling, we tried, and we met David, who was a few years ahead of us, was an inspiration to us as well. And we learned, and we attended the homeschool conference in the US, the whole family there. spent about a week, 2 weeks, I can't remember how long, but he spent some time there. And we came back fully reinforced that that was the way to go. And today, my father will now know the real secrets of what I did.
Should we address you as KB if they want to ask a question? Yeah.
KB is good, yeah. I feel a little bit embarrassed and I feel a little bit ashamed, why I selected too soon on this panel here. Very unfair to all this. Anybody wants to take over? Well, this home study, initially I was a little bit not very in favor. I myself, frankly speaking, is not very well educated. So my parents, my mother was illiterate, my father from China, very little education. Education is actually depends on yourself. I start to think the importance of education is somewhere around from secondary school. In primary, still very stupid. Stupid thinking into primary. But once you're in the secondary school, you start to think that earning a living is not that so simple as everybody thinks. Very, very hard for it. Because I come from a family, it's not a family like Lao Yatla or the big one, more or less a little bit lower than you all. So I have to think for myself how to struggle. I have to study and I also have to work to support my study. So I went up to senior Cambridge only. From there on I started to work until 10 years ago. I wanted to carry on working, but nobody wants to employ me. This home study, initially I was a little bit against it. So I told my son, how can you do that time? 3 children do never go to school. And then finally he promised me, the last one will go to school. The last one will go to school. So I was very, very happy the last one. And that time also started to Wawasan school, vision school, like my idea. After school you open, what happened to your children? Oh, home study. Home study, in fact, I have asked some of my friends who are businessmen, who are holding high position, then most of them are not very, very in favor. That is in Seremban, in KL, I don't know, most of the people. But surprising that in Seremban there are a lot of home study. Why? Anyway, thank you for your attention.
So we should address you as Mr. Soon. Is that right? In question time? Yeah? Okay.
I always keep quiet, Mr. Soon, I will pass.
Okay. And then finally we have Haslinda.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I don't know how I get sucked into this, but I'm definitely not an expert because we have just embarked on homeschooling in 2012, so it's about 5 years. Yeah. I have 5 kids. My eldest is 19, my youngest is 1 year old. My kids have been to school. They have been to government school, they have been to private school, and we get pushed into homeschooling because my 3rd child has dyslexia, and we have tried government school and we tried private school and it doesn't work, and I say, okay, what school to try? So let's try homeschooling. So I always tell people when they say, I don't have the courage like you to do homeschooling, we don't have either. We just, we just try what works. So we get pushed into the situation, we find our way, and we are still doing it. I started homeschooling my 3rd child for 1 year. I tell all my other kids, I said, let me try it for 1 year. and then see if it works. Then maybe next year you guys will have the option. So unfortunately, all of them hate school, so they choose to be homeschooled the following year. Yeah, so here we are. So they are still homeschooling. So at the moment, my number one and my 19 years old and my 17 years old just take their IGCSE, and they have got the results. So they are preparing for college. Hopefully next year we'll see what happens. So yeah, so that's my background. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So now that we know our panelists, the first question that I'm going to ask you is about probably one of the most common questions. Whenever someone finds out that you are homeschooling, the first question they will ask is, what about socialization? Is it really a concern? How do you overcome it if it's a problem? What are your thoughts? And any of you can answer this question. So I leave it up to you to volunteer to answer about the socialization aspect.
I personally think that the problem is not really a big one. I think in this day and age, you can see that we are homeschooling, we are getting along, we have friends, you know, we manage. But there are a couple of things of concern. First of all, it would be this. I don't think you need to have a lot of friends. You need to have very few close friends. Actually, for many of us, very few close friends are good enough. But secondly, you find that today the opportunity for socialization and for interaction is enormously improved from the days when you first started. I think social media has helped to break more barriers and bring people together. And I don't see that as a very relevant question today, really, because people are interacting. There are a number of homeschooling group on Facebook, and they are doing all sorts of things almost every week. You know, we never had that when we began. And it's a multiracial thing, it's multicultural, it's going on almost every other day. So what kind of a question is that, you know, about socialization? I can't understand that. So I'm not sure whether that's a real concern, because I don't see that as a deterrent, really.
Okay, thank you. Haslin, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, when we embark on homeschooling, suddenly things that is not interesting to other people become interesting to them. I can say this because my kids has been in school. So I can give you a perspective of kids being in school and kids not being in school. When my kid was in school, nobody bothers to ask, what have you learned? Or who's your friend? Nobody. Whenever we have family function, all the things that they ask is, this year standard 6, you best ready or not? Can score? Or, oh, PT3 this year. You know, it's all revolved around exam. I don't know about you, but I have 5 kids and I can tell you, every time we have family gathering, we meet the uncle, we meet the grandpa, the grandma, all they ask is exam. How's your exam, huh? You know? Then you start homeschooling, then they wonder, what are you learning? You buat apa today? Or, you know, they will start checking, do you have friends? You know? So, I think this is the thing that I can really relate to what Mr. Sun said, like, it is a path less traveled. It doesn't only make you anxious, it makes a lot of other people anxious too. And I have learned not to give a knee-jerk reaction or to be very emotional, because I think everybody in the end means well. They want the best for your kids, especially the grandparents, the uncles, the aunties. Maybe the way they ask is not really nice, or it can be intimidating, but in the end, they actually have concern. So whenever people have concern about socialization, I always ask them, what is socialization? What is your definition of socialization? So it really depends on what is your definition of socialization. If your definition of socialization is having friends same age, then maybe homeschooling will not give you that. But if your definition of socialization is your kids are able to integrate into the society regardless of race, gender or age, then I think it is not a problem. Because I think whether you homeschool or you don't homeschool, that socialization is the responsibility of the parents to make sure that the kids actually see enough human being to interact. What I have learned, I can tell you, my kids are more socialized when they homeschool. This is what my kids say. They say when they were in school, they can't really click with their peers. They have to pretend they click because they can't really relate things that their friends are talking about. Maybe they are weird, but they don't gossip much and they're not interested. My kids are not the type of kids that take selfies or yeah. So when in school, they told me that sometimes the things that their friends talk about are just the same thing again and again and again. They just really can't relate. And I think this really depends on the type of children. Like my son, my 19 years old, I think sometimes his mind is too complex that not even 15, 16 years old or people his age can understand. He do very well with people older than his age. So he gets along very well when surrounded by, older people. So it really depends. I don't think you should worry about socialization if your definition is to be integrated. I've got remarks from a lot of people that they think my children are very, they're not sane, yeah? They're not angels, but a lot of people are saying that they can talk really well and they integrate very well with people. And I realized with homeschooling, because homeschooling kids are so used to being around people of different age, they're not, if I throw them here, they can talk to you. They are so used to, being surrounded by adults, being surrounded by younger people. So that is actually a plus. And I think, especially for people like me, it is very important for me that my kids mix around with people of different race and different religion. I want my kids to be a global citizen, and I get that through homeschooling. And I don't have to worry about them being insensitive to other people of different races. So it's really how you are doing it. So that's my view on socialization. So I do get the concern of people that they think that when you homeschool you tend to stay in the school. No, you tend to stay in the house. But the truth is, it's up to you. And I am coming from a background where neither me nor my husband is a social butterfly. So we are antisocial as well. My husband will die in this kind of crowd. So you know why you don't see him. But I can tell you that my kids have enough interaction. And I think what we get from homeschooling, the other thing is, I get to control who my kids mix around with. Because I think one of the disadvantage of school is that regardless of how much I know about my kids' friend, I will never know enough. Because the people that they interact with, yeah. And with the access to social media, with the access to information on the internet, you will be surprised what kids 7-year-old, 8-year-old are learning from school. By homeschooling, I do have more control. I do get to, they are mixing with people that I know about their family values, and I can control that. So I find that is a plus. So to me, socialization is one of the advantages of homeschooling.
Thank you, Ms. Anna. We have to stop with that question and move on. All right, the next question that we have is about when you decide to homeschool, parents, grandparents, they may not take it well. They may have, they may not understand what homeschooling is. They may feel uneasy about it. And it's not just parents and grandparents. It could also be a spouse who may not be supportive. I think as homeschoolers or anyone considering it, you know that you will have to face relatives and family members who do not understand what homeschooling is or who may not approve of your decision. So the next question is, how do you deal with that? But first, I know, Mr. Soon, you shared a little bit just in the introduction about your thoughts, how you saw homeschooling when you first heard that your son is going to not put his kids in school. So my question is, like, how did your opinion change? What was it that changed your opinion about homeschooling after some time?
It's not that I'm against whatever it is. I'm a very free. I love my children to do what they want to do, as long as they're in the right line. So I always give them freedom. Stay away, smoking, drinking, gambling, and do things that are not sociable. So I'm very free. I have 3 children. The eldest is besides me, and I have a daughter, and I have another son in Australia, migrated already. I allow them to do what they want. Even when he finished his Form 6, actually he's planning to go to university. But he insists that, Papa, I want to become a monk. He wants to become a monk. I want to stay in Thailand. Oh my God. When I told my friend, hey, you shouldn't allow your son to be. So I don't know how I allow him to go. I think he spent about more than 10 years being a vegetarian and spent many years being a monk. And then he used his goes to jungle, do meditation in the jungle. I don't know as a parent how you all feel. I don't know how. But I still think do what they like to do as long as it is sociable and doesn't hurt people, and it's always on the right path. So none of my children are graduated. Every time my youngest son, Papa, I want to be a coach. I sent him to study actually in the same school, in the Form 6. But quietly he left the school. Don't even let me know. He left the school. He wanted to discontinue his study. So I came to know. I quickly go to the school. He said his name had been struck off. No. I went to the education department to make sure that he gets a seat back. So I went back. But he's still not interested in studying. But after that he became a salesman, and he said he wanted to be a coach. Apparently, he became a swimming coach. But the first thing I always advise my children, before you start any sport before you start, swimming is the most important sport that you must learn. Because swimming, people can get drowned and 3 feet water. If you don't know swim, can drown. First game that you want to do is swimming. As long as you know how to swim, then you pick what you want. He picks basketball, but never, no tournament, didn't see any trophy from him. My daughter, very keen in tennis. And my last son also very keen in tennis. That's why he became a tennis coach. He went to Australia, no job because of the job he has. It's also considered as home study that he learned himself. If not a coach, he learned himself. So I never interfere what he is. This is part of the home study also. The other daughter, so he also a tennis player. My grandchildren, all of them are sportsmen. My eldest granddaughter, which is my daughter's daughter, he went to university, he graduated accounting, but he never works as an accountant. Now it's a gym coach who wants to learn how to play gym. Please go to her. was fit, very fit, can carry very heavy weight. The other son in Australia is, as I say, is a tennis coach. So he look for job morning. They just take a racket to the court. There are people asking to be coached. Easy. Jadi makan in Australia. And my grandson, but also my daughter's son, after schooling, he went to what study what cooking class. He wants to get a certificate in cooking. After 6 months, he gave up and become a swimming coach because due to the good learning. Also considered as a home study. He learned himself. Get a few good friends and coach to teach him how to do, and he become a swimming coach.
So it sounds like you are used to having unconventional routes being taken by your children, your grandchildren in this. Maybe I can ask David, did you have any resistance or unfavorable attitudes when you decided to follow the path of homeschooling?
I think that, yeah, there will be some reservations always. I think that my dad was a very open-minded person. He had some reservation, but not very, very strong objections. I think I remember when we first thought about it, Su Ching was also concerned about her own parents, whether they would react unfavorably. But we never really had very strong objections. I think that the greatest concern at the time was not so much that we were going against the wishes of our parents, but whether we would get into trouble with the government. I think that was the one that was the first and the uppermost in our minds. But eventually, I think we got over it because we felt that, yeah, some point in your life you had to draw a line, and we felt that we would just go ahead and we did that. And so I can't say that we had a lot of objections.
Lucky for you as well. Because Linda, how about you? How did you deal with the grandparents?
My dad was not happy, and my dad was as stubborn as me, but he knows that I will still go ahead. I think this is the thing that you need to remember when you deal with objections about homeschooling. Nobody needs to approve how you raise your children. Nobody. You are not, you doesn't owe anybody any explanation. As long as you and your husband think this is the best option for your children, go ahead. If you try, it doesn't work, you put them back to school, you're not a failure. You just try what works. So this is one thing that you need to remember. Second thing that you need to remember is what values you are showing to your children. You don't want to lie to people. You don't want to lie to your grandparents, or you don't want to say, oh, when we met Ato and Nenek say you are going to school. So what are you teaching your children, right? And you have to understand that there are only so much you can do to your children. You can try and try, but in the end, the outcome is still up to God. There are certain things that, is beyond your control. You need a lot of blessings to make things happen. And one of the blessings is from your parents. So you can't get it if you keep fighting with your parents and you lie to them. So this is important. To me, you have to be very realistic. If you face the objection, you have to understand why are they objecting. Is it because they are worried? Is it because they don't believe in homeschooling? Yeah. As long as they don't stop you, that's fine. They don't have to agree with you. As long as they don't stop you from doing it, they don't go and report you to Ministry of Education. Trust me, there are people who did this, yeah. I've heard of parents who have gone through this where, the grandparents go and talk to the Ministry of Education or whatever. So as long as they don't do things like that, you just go ahead. To me, I think what you can tell, try not to be confrontational. The problem is that whenever people embark on homeschooling, they start being very defensive, and every time you face a situation, you start trying to argue. So it is always in a confrontation mode. If you face objection from the grandparents, do acknowledge their concern, because we are all concerned about the children anyway. To me, you can just, some of the stuff that you can say things like, let me try for 1 year and see if it works, and I need your support in this. If it doesn't work, we'll put them back in school. Discuss this as an adult and try not to be confrontational. When I pull out my third child from school, nobody questioned me, because to them, my children has dyslexia, she doesn't fit into school, and she has problem. But when I pull out the rest from school, a lot of people are not happy. Especially, like my son is doing really well in school with the exam. So they say, you think you can do a better job? Why would you actually pull them out? But the thing that I did is I never argue with anybody. I don't think I owe anybody any explanation. And I don't tell people what homeschooling is. Because to me, if they are interested to know, they can Google up themselves, or they can find out themselves. Those who don't understand don't want to understand. So regardless of how much you try to explain, they won't get it. So I don't waste my time. I have learned the art of deviating attention. I smile, I change topic. Save my energy, saves your energy. It's true. In family gathering, I will have all the aunties, ni apa ni? Tak pergi sekolah ni? Auntie, I heard you go Australia that day. It always works. But it's true. You don't owe anybody any apology, or any explanation. But what I can say is that my dad was one of the person who is very unhappy, and he did tell me. He said, especially with my son, because he's that's his favorite chuchu. So he said, I'm not happy, I don't agree, but I know you will go ahead anyway. So I just keep quiet. I leave it at that. Few months after we homeschooled my son, my uncle confronted me in front of everybody, blaming me, saying I was very irresponsible to pull my children out when my children is doing well in school. And I was caught off guard because it was in public, there are a lot of people, and I don't know how to say it in a respectful manner, explain to him. And I have to tell you the truth, I'm a bit pissed off because he just tell me off like that in front of people. Surprisingly, it's my dad who stand up and defended my decision. He was telling my uncle how different my son was after homeschooling, because my son has always been a straight A student but very empty inside him. You can talk to him and he just couldn't be bothered about anything. But after homeschooling for a few months, we've been traveling and we've been exposing them to stuffs and all that. He spoke to my son about what he wanted to do, and God knows what my son said, but he told my uncle, he said, I was very impressed with what he wants to do. He wanted to help people, and he wanted to use his comic to actually spread the message or whatever. And at that time he was like 16 years old. But what it shows is that we have never seen that side of him. We've never seen him bothered about anything or have any interest about anything. And suddenly my dad sees that. So I always tell people, pray that the results will speak loud enough and help you explain. It might come soon, it might come later, it might not even come, but God is very graceful. If you have a good intention and you're doing this sincerely, not to prove to anybody, stop trying to prove to people. You want to prove that homeschooling is the best or homeschooling works better than school. Stop that. If you have a sincere intention, the result will actually speak for itself. And they will notice. And you don't have to do any explanation. But please be very civil with the grandparents and the elders, because they have good intention. If you are rude to them, you're teaching your children to be rude to their elders as well. So that's one thing we need to remember when we face all these objections.
Thank you, Haslinda. This is really true. I also have some resistance, not from my parents. My parents said, oh, you're a teacher, you know what you're doing, but my mother-in-law said, oh, you're gonna ruin your kids. Their whole future, you're throwing it out the window. And we just left it be. We don't want to argue with her because the grandmother, we want her to be around, we want her to feel comfortable visiting and things like that. So after maybe about 6 or 8 months, I said to her one day, I said, would you like to see what we are doing? And then we just sat down and I took out the things that we had been doing and I took out the pictures and I just showed her. And after that, she was like, well, this is okay. Actually, they are doing fine. And you're right, the results. And then she will always see what we are doing on Facebook and things like that. And she's very proud now, actually. She is very supportive now, and she doesn't have any worries at all anymore. So yes, I think the results, they definitely speak for themselves. And being civil is very, very important because you don't want to burn the relationships of people that are important in the lives of our children. Yeah. KB, did you want to add anything?
I think in terms of, I think contractions, if we are firm on our ground, what we want to do, I think we can make things happen. In some ways, it's a test of how strong we are committed to the values that we hold. But what I want to share is, what my dad mentioned. Homeschool is not about school taken out and then school at home. It's a lifestyle. It's a value system. It's an approach to learning. I would say, I'm not sure if my dad would agree with, but I would say that I was homeschooled in a way, the principles. We were given the opportunity to explore what we wanted to do. What my dad didn't say that both my brother and sisters were national tennis players representing the country. They went that deep, as deep as I spent 10 years at Temple. That deep, right? We had that opportunity to explore, and now we know what life was there. My nephew, he was a national swimmer. We have reached to that level of competitive sports to understand. You're not a surface, and then that's it, walk away. So they know. I think the ability to allow your children to explore and allow the freedom for me to explore is what's most important for us, and that sets the pace, the tone in the home, that learning have no boundaries. So when we talk about homeschooling, we actually want to allow our children to learn at home. It's allowing them the freedom to explore and the freedom to learn, even if they may be wrong. But we are there to help them, turn back in their place.
Yeah, sure.
I really like what has been said, and it is true that eventually the parents or your in-laws will get to see how your children behave. I remember when our children were very young, although there were some reservations but not strong objections, but my kids spending time with my dad and with Sukjin, my wife's dad, actually changed their opinions about how the kids were raised. They could play Chinese chess since a very early age and beat the parents, And then they say, oh, where did you learn Chinese chess? None of you speak English at home, and who taught these people that? And eventually they saw the journal, they saw what they did, and they came away thinking, hey, they are okay. In fact, they find that they were able to conduct themselves in a very respectful manner, and I think that made the difference. So I like what has to say, you're not there to confront them. When our parents were at home, my kids would serve. They would bring out the plates or cups and all that, and they take things to the kitchen. I think all these things leave a very strong impression that you are teaching your kids values that are way beyond just mere academics. And I think that really helps. Yeah, I agree that you should allow your kids to interact, and you should allow them to be with the parents, and that's where they will learn. There was one occasion when I sent my kids to interview my dad, and I said, okay, this is how you learn history. Talk to my dad about what happened in the Japanese occupation. So they took a book and they interviewed him, what happened, when you were at this age, what did the Japanese army do to you? And he just learned stories about, smuggling cigarettes and all that. And so they were recording all those things, and I think that built a lot of relationships and also improved the increase their acceptance that what our kids were doing was right.
Thank you. Okay, so it seems like a big hurdle, but if you give it time, it can resolve itself. The next question is about what happens after secondary school, so to speak. A lot of people are concerned, how will my child transition into university or adulthood from homeschooling, because they won't have a SPM certificate. What do I do? Should I be concerned? So this one, I think, definitely every one of these panelists can answer because they have older kids who have faced it. All right, so maybe we start with Linda, because you just recently, your children just recently did IGCSE, so you can talk about it.
My biggest reservation before I start homeschooling is this, because one is my kids were in school and then want to homeschool. Second is because when we started, my kids are much older than the rest of the homeschooling community's children. They are pretty young communities, so I don't know whether there are issues with older kids. There are issues with kids that have been to school that need to be homeschooled. You know, there are different issues that need to be resolved. So I was in a different situation, and I remember speaking to Eileen on the phone. I don't know whether she remembers that or not, but and she lead me to a few other people, and I get to know that there are people like David and all that has done it and has gone through the path, and their children have graduated and all that. So I feel at peace knowing there are people who have done this and have gone through this, that their kids gone to college. Having said that, we know that college is not the only option. We know that certain kids are never meant for academy. Their path is somewhere else. I think what parents nowadays need to detach themselves. It's so hard to be a parent these days. There's so much judgment from others, and there's so much judgment from ourselves. We scrutinize every single thing, and things that comes natural to our parents before, not natural anymore to us. We think about everything, how to feed them, how to play with them, what to do, how to read. Certain stuff that our grandparents just do it lah, you know. We go with the flow lah, certain things, you know. Yeah. So we always brag about Mark Zuckerberg, about Steve Jobs. But have you asked yourself, if your kids actually wants to do things in the backyard and don't want to go to school, would you be okay with that? Would you actually be okay with your kid? Then you will say, yeah, but our kids is not Steve Jobs, you know, our kids are not Mark Zuckerberg, and how many Mark Zuckerberg is there in this world? But this is the thing. We know that there are people who take the less traveled path and do well. Why can't that people be your kid? What is stopping your kids from being that person? It's your support, right? And your belief and your faith that he will be one. So this is one thing that you need to remember about college. Having said that, our personal experience, when we first homeschool everybody, we thought of giving, especially my eldest, 1 year of gap year. We end up giving him like 3-4 years of gap year, because after 1 year we're like, alamak, it's like just warming up. Okay, maybe another year, and then another year. So finally this year I told him, I said, dude, I need your room. You have a little brother, I think you need to move out, and you need to take your IGCSE, no more gap year. But what I'm trying to say is that people think we get the hang of stuff, and people think that, you know, we are so in control. We are not. We are just going with the flow. College is definitely possible. My experience, after a few years, we decided that maybe college is the best path for my number 1 and number 2. while I was searching for information about IGCSE, because IGCSE seems to be the simplest route for us because we don't have transcript and all that, so I say, okay, you know, we take IGCSE for academic. I realized how commercial it is, education is in Malaysia, at least. And I get really turned off. We ask around how much it would cost for kids to prepare for IGCSE, tons of money. The average amount you pay for tutor is 80 to 100 ringgit per hour per subject. You're crazy. You know, and this is at the age of everything is a Google click away. So after I asked around, and then another thing that really turned me off is that when we ask the center, the most standard answer they will say, oh yeah, but your kids, are they ready? They need to be with us at least like 1 or 2 years to be our student. If not, you know, we have to do assessment and see whether they fit to be accepted into our center. Because your kids, regardless of how much you pay, will be their statistic. You know? So I don't want to screw up my statistic because we need to see how many people got A, how many people got B. So it is all business. And, oh, if you don't want to join classes, we have intensive, where we do past years for 3 months, 1,500 ringgit per subject. I was like, I better go travel. I would rather put that money somewhere else. So finally I told my kids, I said, look, we homeschool you for 3-4 years. We teach you the real meaning of education. We teach you how to find information and learn for yourself. I think it will really undo everything that we have done if we start sending you to the center and you sitting there listening to the teachers purging out past year's questions and what. Why can't you do this at home? So I get so disappointed and turned off. We decided to do IGCSE on our own. And we didn't go to any tutorials and whatever. We prepared in 2 months plus. We are crazy because we are last minute people. We just want to get the exam out of the way. But I can tell you this. It was one of the best experiences that my kids have ever gone through. We sit for IGCSE, they sit for IGCSE in May. It gives them the experience to actually, how do I collate information? When there is so much information on internet, how do you find the right information? It also teaches them how to work under pressure. You can talk until cows come home. Guys, you need to organize your time. Guys, you need to, you know, have a schedule. My family is one of the chaotic family you can ever met. Okay? We have never nailed it like all this schedule, all this chart of being organized. No. That's why we did IGCSE in 2 months plus. But it gives my children the real experience of how to actually handle things. And we didn't stop their life commitment. They still do their sports, they still do whatever commitment that they have, they still do. I said, the world doesn't stop because of your exam. So life continues as usual. You just got to manage and juggle this. And they did. They will say, oh, can we skip ice hockey today? But you know you have ice hockey on Friday. So we did, even during their exam days. Everything is as usual, because I told them, I said, if you go to college, are you going to stop your life just because you have an assignment? Are you going to stop your life just because you have an exam coming? You can't do that, right? Life goes on. You have to manage. If you have 1 hour, how can you use this 1 hour in maximum and try to get as much things done? So these are the things that they get through when they go through the exam. I know some homeschooling purists keep telling us, oh, but college is not everything. You know, why do you all go through the exam? Yeah, but different people, different path. And for my kids who have been unschooled for 3-4 years, going through the exam give them push them to actually go through the stress and how they manage it and how to schedule themselves. These are the things that they need to go through themselves. So for us, it doesn't matter what their result is. Thank God their result is decent enough, but for us, we have achieved our exam objective. And I realize this, when we go through this, we are not scared anymore. I've been to school. I've been through school and I am not a kiasu parent, but I can tell you, regardless of how not kiasu you are, it's very difficult not to get sucked into this because everybody talk about the exam. You can't tell the kid the A's doesn't matter when they don't get straight A's, when the whole world has been talking about straight A's for years, you know? How can you tell that kid that her worth is not depending on her A's when, you know, for years they have been drilled that you got to get straight A's. It's very difficult. I've gone through UPSR, I've gone through PMR. I can tell you it's crazy. I don't like it. You might like it, but I personally don't. And I think it do more harm than good to my children. So when we go through IGCSE this year, it was really different. On the day the IGCSE result come out, we were in Japan, going somewhere, the volcano and trying to find out stuff. We only check the result in the evening. We have passed that stage where we are freeze and we can't think of anything on exam day. I think that's what we as a family learn. Because we know whatever result that they got, we will just move on from there. We will make the best out of it. It is not the end, it's means to an end. So when we see they got ungraded for their admits, we just chuckle. How silly we are to think they will survive 2 months preparing for it. We know they won't score, but it is a business decision. But I think this is what you need to learn. You know, exam chill. You know, I don't want my kids to take things easy either. They can testify to you how horrible I can be and how monstrous I can be. You do want them to have the right attitudes and stuff like that, but I think if you treat exam the right way, it can do tons of good things to the child. So, I can't talk about college, they're not in college yet, but pray for me, they get scholarship.
Thank you so much, Heslinda. It's really an eye-opener. It's a different view of exams. I wanted to ask KV though, because you didn't do IGCSE, did you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't. Your kids have done different things. So there are, like Heslinda said, there's different paths for different people. Different families do different things. So your kids didn't go that path. Can you share what they did?
Yes, very interesting experience. Very similar, but I won't talk about the similarities. I think there are a couple of things we have learned from this experience. Number one, if you decide to homeschool and you want to take education more seriously, you know, with our children, let's get over the fact that college is important. Right? It is important as many other paths. It's not the only path. Just get over that. Don't go to college now. Right? Okay, I don't go to college. I've not been. I have been just visiting college. You know. I became a visiting student. Visiting student in. I must tell you this. I somehow or other ended up becoming a visiting student at the University of California, Berkeley. So if somebody says something, it's like, wow, how do you get that? Another follow. I did two things into them, but number one is this first one, you know, there are many paths. Number two is ask your child. Your children will tell you what they want to do. The eldest one is she decided, and she went for IGCSE, and she took the course. But she decided what subjects she wanted to take and didn't want to take. At the end of the day, she decided not to take the exam because she felt that it's not what she wanted to do. Fair enough. It's her decision. Let her make it, like my dad told me, this is her decision. So same, right? And this is the freedom, because somewhere along the line, we spoke to her, said, you know, maybe psychology or something, later. Not now. Now, I confuse what she does most of the time, but I know songwriting, singing, number one, ice skating, number two, then somewhere there is ballet. So she's a ballet teacher, she's an ice skate coach, and she is a singer-songwriter. She has produced an album. I think that's good enough. Okay, that's very good at this point. My second one, college. Don't even talk. Okay, dyslexic, right? She loves to dance. Okay. So a bit of advertisement tonight, 8 o'clock. Visiting the channel 310. She's dancing in the finals of the Asian Battleground. Her passion is dance. She She recently won the Malaysian Asian Battle Drummer team. Now she's in the Asian finals. And tonight's the finals. Right? And that's the passion. Okay? I think is she successful? 1 year contract with Astro. Good. She make money. I think eventually somewhere along the line she would. She's now buying shoes, shirts, all. She's the only one with branded clothes in the house where we don't have to pay. Okay, I said, oh, good. Yeah, it saves one way of making money. One way of making money is not spending money. So, I think we have to think in a different way. Yeah? So I think that's her career path is starting to move. Right? My son, 12, talk about college. I had a very interesting conversation with one of his teachers. He's learning programming right now. And yesterday they completed the first set of programs that they have uploaded on the internet, Minecraft, I think you know it, which allow people to download. So they are creating sub-programs at 12. Right? I spent a lot of my years managing programmers in my job. And at 12 years old, I think it's very interesting because if you are one to understand programmers, 100 people going in first year programming, IT programming, 95 of them probably have not done programming in their lives. Because they spend their time passing the UPSR, PMR, then I want to do programming and then I go to the first year, and I'll just programming. Right? So what we are doing is that we are creating the basics and the grounding and the foundation. They start Java programming next month. So I think if he decides to go to college and do programming first year, I think his foundation is fantastic. If he decides that path. And homeschooling allows us to have that choice, right? And if we ask ourselves, do you like it? And I mean, he's not here today because he programmed until 1 AM last night, cannot wake up this morning, right? So that he likes it, right? So allow them the opportunity, follow the passion. If college value adds to that, let it be. That should be the way. Right?
Thank you. We have 5 minutes left for this question. And David, your kids have actually gone into the university. Yeah, so talk about your experience.
Well, not every child is academically inclined, and you have to give allowances, and I think that's a key paradigm shift that you have to effect in your own life. My oldest, after he was 18, he originally set for SAT because at the time everybody was talking about SAT, and I was telling people, yeah, SAT is the way to go, but eventually you learn that actually there were other options besides SAT. But he did SAT, he did quite well, he set for it twice to improve his grades. But at the point when he did that, we were not very sure how it would end up. But like what has just said, my son took also a kind of a gap year, and he went on to join a ship that took him to Europe for about 6 to 8 months, basically doing other things, visiting other countries for a while. And so eventually he used that SAT to go into a university in US. And with the transcripts that was gathered through the years, he had done things with Amy, he had climbed Mount Kinabalu, all sorts of things, and he went to the commissioner of oath, start stamping everything. Yes, he did run the Malay Meal Marathon, everything, and he wrote his essays, and he got a scholarship and went to university in Texas. So that is the SAT route. My second son took the IGCSE O-levels route as well, which was quite different, and he went to a learning center for 6 to 8 months, and surprisingly, he managed to get straight A's, for subjects he never sat for in the past. And it assured me that actually, if you really have to do it, any child can succeed. Particularly if the home is secure, there's a lot of acceptance, there's a lot of affirmation to the things that they are doing, and they are not pressured to perform. Just do what you can. And I think that you can do it. And so with the opportunities available today, you can choose to be either go to college through SAT or O-levels, whatever it is. I think that's fine. And you can choose to be a dancer, you can choose to do anything you like. But the most important thing is that your heart has to be there. And my own values that I pass on to my children would be, don't just live for yourself. I'm glad that today Elliot is helping out with refugees, and he's taking time off to do that. And I'm glad that he's making time to help people who are less fortunate than us. To me, that's a great thing, more than just trying to score and be another Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs. Eventually, he may become something like that, but it doesn't matter. The most important is he's doing something that is valuable to humanity, and I'm happy with that.
Thank you. All right, we have one final question before we go to the question and answer session. And this one is from your experience. what do you think is the #1 misconception about homeschooling? Maybe other than things we have talked about now. Anyone want to take a stab at that?
That you have to be patient and perfect and superwoman before you do it. You will never be. Yeah. I've always had people, to the point I get really annoyed, I just again smile and change the subject. They'll say, oh my God, I can never be like you. Like what? Scream to my children? Seriously, parenting, you know, when you think you got it, then there will be new challenges, you know? So you always learn, right? You will never be perfect. You will never be that poster mom that is so zen and got things in control. Everybody have eaten on time, bathed on time. You know, you will never reach that. If you think the reason is big enough, strong enough for you to do it, just do it. Even if you screwed up, you will have no regrets, because the regret of not doing it will be worse than the regret of doing and screwing up. I can tell my children 5 years, 10 years from now, I suck at certain things, but I've done what I can. This is the best, and I have tried my best. Yeah. So I think the first thing that you need to do is stop being so hard on yourself. You will never be that perfect parent. Even, you know, if anybody says they are, I think there's something wrong. Because there's no perfect parents. So if all you need for homeschooling is a reason, the reason is personal. Everybody has different reason of doing it. Some people doing it for religious reason. Some people are doing it because the child has tried school and never like it. Some people are doing it because the child doesn't fit into school. So everybody has different reason. So you can't use my reason. So I always ask people, you want to do homeschooling, you have to find your own reason. Not because it's the in thing to do, or you know, it's something sounds like a trend. No, you have to find your reason. Once you found your reason, you need to get your partner on board. That's all the support you need. The rest of the world can disagree with you, but if your partner agrees with you on the board, that's all you need. You don't need a degree. You don't need a degree, you don't need a PhD to teach your children. You don't need to be that qualified teacher. So you get your support of your partner, you can do it. The third misconception is, yeah, I need to be educated enough. Do you need to be educated to teach your child to walk? Do you need to be educated enough to teach cooking? No, right? What you need to understand is that the world has changed. There are so many ways a kid can learn, and there is only so much you can teach. So if your kids want to learn programming, and you are gadget illiterate like me, you want to learn programming to teach your kids programming? That's crazy. There are resources for that. Your job is to open the door and facilitate and find people and guide them. Not everything you have to teach. You know, I still suck at physics and maths. My kids sit for IGCSE for physics and maths. So you don't need to be good at everything, then teach your children. Your children can learn on their own. If you set a good foundation, if you did well during your foundation years, the kids love learning, you have no problem. Because the resources are there. So that's some of the common misconceptions.
Okay, anyone else want to add?
I think the biggest advantage for the parents of home study is they can sleep. They can sleep late. They get up late in the morning. They don't have to make breakfast early in the morning and send the children to the school. That's the biggest advantage they have. No uniform, no need to pay money on uniform, no need to do that. But one thing, most of the parents nowadays, especially the school-going children, they always stress to their children that you got to study hard to make money, to earn a better living. I was even asking myself what they are talking about, better learning, better living. You earn better if you study hard. But they never realize that if you force the children to study, if you force the children to go to tuition, they go to school at 5 o'clock, they come back at 3 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock in the evening they are forced to go to the tuition. But out of the number of children that have gone, they are going to, that is going to the tuition one. They don't know how many percent actually go to the tuition class. They don't even know what their children are doing. Because I used to go sometimes myself quietly used to go to tuitions and school to see what actually they are doing. These children, some of the children which I noticed almost time they will go to the tuition class and the parents will waiting there to pick them up. That they don't know. They always strike into their mind, easy, make money, you must study hard to make money, they study hard to make money. They never realize that that is not the way to earn a living. I have friends now who have very, very low education and now is a multi-millionaire and the owner of factories in Chicago. They teach me, better things. One day, when I went up to the directors, I told him that one of the staff wants to take a few months off to study in USA. I said, if he wants to go, let him go, resign and go. You don't need graduates like that. You don't need graduates like that. Then he pushed me a question to me. Are you a graduate? What position are you holding now? There are so many graduates working under you, Mr. Sun. Do you know or not? They have to listen what you tell them to do now. Sometimes you have to teach them how to do it. Earning a living is not what people you have. Earning a living is here. It's all here. How you handle your brain, how you make use of your brain. I keep on telling my children how you make use of your brain. In life, there are a few things that you must avoid. You must avoid. And best to avoid smoking, drinking, gambling, and what I want to say. And you get one of those involved, it's bad for everybody, not only for him or himself. Gambling is the worst. I got a lot of friends who told me, if any people do a lot of bad things to me, I don't have to take revenge against the person who will take the bad thing to me. What I need to do is to teach one of his children how to gamble is enough. How to gamble is enough. Well, gambling, no limits. No limits. I can give you an example of my cousin. Colombo, very rich man, Manlung, he separated and built and opened a company called Unschooling. When canteen started, not long ago, and he got involved in canteen. Not long ago, the Unschooling also disappeared. Billions of money he has disappeared. Whatever it is, teach your children, no smoking, no drinking, no gambling, no drug addict, Drinking, how much can you drink? You can drink the whole night. How many bottles can you drink? There's a limit there. There's a limit there. Smoking, how many packets can you smoke? A lot of people don't realize that, these fellows drink a lot, waste a lot of money. Yes, waste money, but how much can you drink? By gambling, one thing about gambling, you must teach your children no gambling, no gambling. I myself sometimes, because my father, for all these things, I inherited one, gambling very little, still lose a lot of money. There's no limit. Never touch gambling, whatever it is.
Okay, thank you. We have to stop there because time has run out for this session of questions. Now what I want to do is open the floor to questions and allow the audience to ask more questions they want to know about the basics of homeschooling. So, we have one over there. And please tell us your question, your name, and which of the people you would like to answer the question.
Hello, my name is Shazali. My kids are 11, 10, 7 and 2. I've got 4 kids. The eldest daughter, the rest sons. So education has always been associated to a place. You know, you go to school, you learn, you come back, lepak depan TV, switch your brain off. So that's the issue that I've got with school, and we waste a lot of time traveling, you know, and sometimes the teacher in the class got to focus on the weaker ones, so the kids go nganga, don't do anything. So a lot of wastage of time, I would say. So now we've got timetable. We've got timetable at the school, and we've got syllabus, right? So now if we gonna have them at home, what syllabus are we going to look at and what timetable are we going to look at? I know my paradigm is still school paradigm. I need to move that away, but there must be some kind of orderliness lah. Otherwise, they will have a gala time at home, and and we don't know what to, at some point we must benchmark them against something. Learning must have defined parameters, right? So that is my question. So
about structure. Structure.
Yes, how to structure the learning at home.
Okay, I think we should have David and Kiwi answer this question because you guys kind of have two different approaches.
I want to say that my kids had a gala time at home. I think a lot of homeschoolers, you'll find that we are not as structured as you imagine. I was going to say that one of the misconceptions of homeschooling is that it's very structured, but I never got to answer that. But at the end of the day, I agree that there has to be some kind of benchmark. So I normally tell parents that the least thing you could do is to decide where you want your kids to end up. So when our children were very young, we thought that SAT was the route. So that was the one that we used to benchmark. Okay, you got to make sure the foundation is good, your vocabulary, you master the basics, the 3 R's and all that. They learn to write and read very early, and so.
What's SAT, sorry?
SAT is a scholastic aptitude test that prepares you for entry to colleges in the US. So it's
like A-level.
Yeah. Well, you could call it equivalent to that O levels of the thing. And so they did that as a benchmark, and so that allowed you to see, all right, are they equipped, and would that get them into college if they were good into US? But if you are looking at, let's say, education locally, the colleges. The private colleges will look at what they call the SPM equivalent, which is the O levels. And Hastin has done a very good paper on how to do that. And so if you use it as a benchmark, all right, I want my kid to go to a college if they choose to, and O levels your benchmark, then you'll know that you have to master certain curriculum. There are 5 subjects, whatever it is. And so you just go through that. So that will give you some kind of a basis to aim at. And that would help. But eventually, if your child has changed his mind, he says, I want to be a programmer, then of course you could change. I can tell you stories of people a family I know whose daughter was actually prepared to do an SAT, but eventually she ended up being a cellist, and in the end that was what she did. And she basically dumped your maths, your science, your physics and all that, and just focused on that, and I got herself a GED, which is an American program. And just pursue playing the cello, and now she performs in the orchestra in KLCC, so that's possible.
Right, thank you, David. Kiwi, you practice something more like what we call unschooling, right? And it's kind of like at the other end of the spectrum where there isn't a lot of structure. Can you talk about that more?
Yeah, first of all, that's what it is. Totally unstructured. Another way of putting it is the gala continues. It's better than the gala in the house, we know what's happening, and the gala outside. But I think more seriously, I think you said something really interesting. It's about, I think we have not switched our paradigm yet. I think this is something that we need to do. Right? We have to, homeschooling, I mean, I don't quite like the term also. Homeschooling is not about schooling, it's about home. Home first, right? Education is about learning, it's not about benchmarking. Alright? Okay. Benchmarking happens and it's necessary. I'm not saying not important, it's important. When you're aiming for something and you set yourself that milestone to achieve what you want to achieve. And that comes with exploration with your spouse. And more importantly, exploration with your child. Right? One of the first things that we learned when we are starting to homeschool our children is we went to the US, attended the homeschool conference. It's called the California Homeschool Conference. Big poster in front, there's a child leaping off a cliff. I believe into the water, so the big word that says, trust your child. You've got to trust them. You've got to ask them. If they say don't know, okay, never mind, don't know now. Right? As they grow older, they'll tell you. They'll tell you what they want. Then you set the benchmarks together, what you're going to do. Yeah? And I think there'll be a lot of stories you can share later on. In our website, we have a lot of these stories. Okay? So, with children very young, allow them the opportunity to have the freedom to learn. And that's what home education or home learning is about, the freedom to learn and explore and discover. And in doing that, they discover about themselves. I think that's important. That is a solid grounding for them in their future, whatever they want to do in the future. So let's start with that one.
I really couldn't agree more with what KB has said. I don't know how many times when I worked at Help University College and I would counsel students, they would pick majors because their friend was going to be there, or because their parents said you should just major in this. But they don't really know what they want. They're so lost. And we are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being spent for this. And you are talking about 20, 30 years of your life that you are trying to figure out what you want to do. And I think that it's just so important is that figure it out. Figure out who you are. Help your child figure that out. I think that's the most important thing we can do in education. And as they figure it out, then you know what the skills they need to get there. And you help them along the way. What is the path that they're going to be? Is it university? Then we start to plan along that way. Is it trades? We start to plan along that way. Is it entrepreneurship? We start to plan along that way. But the first thing is, who is your child? Yeah, we got to figure that out together. You know? And I think that's where we start. And then structure comes in. Structure comes according to what God's created your child to be. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for answering that. I'm sure there are many more questions. Got another one here in the row, the gap shirt.
My name is Sean. I'm a parent of 2 young daughters. I believe we have been talking about homeschooling the whole time during this forum. I found it that isn't it pretty stressful that we follow the certain curriculum sitting for IGSE. How about the unschooling route that actually our parents can actually do? Is it more stressful for the parents? Parents don't need to be so stressed and less disciplined. They can just do what they want. It's more like a child-led process. How do you go about on that? Then my second question would be...
Okay, wait. Let's stop at the first question. Okay, and then we'll talk about maybe other things. So, how do you do unschooling? You're really curious about that, is it? Yeah. All right. Well, this is KB again. He's the unschooling champion, and we're gonna give him answer the question.
I have no trophy, unfortunately. I want to just stop one point that you mentioned. Unschooling doesn't mean no discipline. So let's get that.
It's more like a child-led process.
It's a child-led process. A child-led process can be extremely free on one end, and it can be extremely structured because the child wants a structure. So you know what you want to do, right? Unschooling is not so much about the child, in my opinion. It's more about us as parents. You know, I want to answer in this way because we are taught and we are trained in the system to understand that by a certain age, must do this thing, by a certain time, must do this thing. You know, it's the panic button in the parents that what's happening with my child? How come they are not doing anything? What have you learned today? Nothing. Oh, wow. I was. It was part of my experience as well because I go to work and come back. My link tries to do worksheet with them, and then it doesn't work out, so nobody do anything. So it comes back, and then so what do you learn today? Nothing. but it's really us. It's really us. Okay, we need to understand one thing. In the unschooling environment, the whole principle of unschooling is that the child is a natural learner. Child learns. You leave a child somewhere, he will survive. He will survive. He will learn. You don't teach him how to walk, he will walk. Right? When he's hungry and look for food, that's how humans survive. Because humans survive is in our DNA to learn, to be educated. Some guy came along and said you must educate in this way. Somewhere in the Industrial Revolution, the first time, I can't remember what year it was. Right? So unschooling is about taking that perception away and allowing the child freedom. And allowing ourselves as parents to be distressed and not be framed in their mind that, oh, you have to do this right now, why you are not doing that, right? But all said and done, sometimes we need reassurance. We need to know some level of benchmarking. They actually learning anything, right? So that's where parents come together, we share experiences, and then groups like this. And the more we listen to a child, the child will tell you what she wants to do. Sometimes we don't listen enough. My second daughter, very young, she said, I love dancing. Okay. So, girl, dancing, me, parents, Asian, equals ballet. Correct, right? Okay. The daughter said, I love dancing. Oh, okay, I sign you at ballet school. Cannot get up in the morning, don't want to go, cannot find the tutu, go out of the house, cannot find the other shoe. Hey, I thought you like dancing. Right? But it was stressful. Right? When it's stressful in our schooling environment, we know that something is not right. Something was not right. Then one day she saw this show on TV, showdown, dancing, this crazy dance, flip right round, you spin, And she says, this is dance. This is the dance, not ballet. Okay, so yeah, that's what we do. Open up, learn, and allow them to grow.
Thank you, Katie. I've been told we have 10 minutes, so I'm going to take 5 minutes for one question and 5 minutes for another, so 2 more questions. All right.
If you don't mind, I just finish my second question.
No, I'm really going to give others a chance. So I'm going to give this lady here and this lady in the black shirt over there because I know she's also been waiting. Okay.
Hi, I'm Putri. Very short and quick. It's quite personal. I'm running a business. I'm very, very busy. Both me and my husband we're into education. We're doing play-based learning. But how do I make this? Because my time's already unstructured. Like meetings. You don't know your timing. So how do I drag along my children with me? I've got 5. Yeah. At first it's 10, 8, 5, 3, and 1. I would love to do homeschooling because I fight for education and I know what is right. That's what I feel. Please help. I don't know how to make it.
Do you want to address this to any particular
Anybody
person?
can help if, Thank you.
Well, this mother has got 5 as well. She has to balance as well.
I think I've established I'm the most chaotic mom, right? Sometimes my kids have to find their own breakfast and lunch and dinner. Anyway, few things. One is the moment you decide to homeschool, you have to decide macro-wise what is acceptable for you and your partner for your kids to learn by a certain age. Not the school where like by 6, by 7, by 8, but you can gauge like, okay, by 9 these kids maybe should know how to read and is reading and stuff like that, or you have your own benchmark. Okay, you can get this from internet and there are tons of information. What is my benchmark might not be your benchmark. I might be fine with my kids not reading at 9, but you are not fine. Don't don't push yourself. If you're not fine, then, put reading as your goal. Then you will feel better, because when you homeschool, there'll be ups and downs. There'll be times when you think you're a superhero. There are times where you feel like you're the worst mother ever. You need to keep reminding yourself about your objective to keep you on track. So one is be very clear about what you want for your child. Okay, for Muslims, some people, okay, I need my child to know how to pray, how to read Quran by certain age. So if you work that out, you will realize that there's actually not much you want from a child. At least by 12 years old, by 17 years old. Not as much as what school wants to do with them. Okay? So one is to be very clear of your objective. Second is to understand kids don't learn from 9 to 5. Do you learn from 9 to 5? Do. They just need, if you can do a solid 1 hour or a solid 2 hours every day with the kids, that's actually more than what they have done in school. Because they are learning in a very maximum capacity, and what you need to do, and you don't have to do everything. If you do a good job in that, it doesn't even have to be 1 hour. Sometimes it takes like half an hour. You already push them to do it, inspire them to do more. They can do self-learn and stuff on their own. Like you teach them, and then they do their own exploration. So that can be done. And there are tons of resources that they can do on their own. We have iPad, apps, education can be on the go, It doesn't have to be at home. Anything that have Wi-Fi, they can listen. We studied IGCSE 100% using resources, free resources on the internet. So that is another thing that you need to learn. Third is to get yourself into the tribe. You need the support. You can't do this on your own. There are different type of people in the homeschooling community. I don't know how people like David do it before the age of Facebook. I really can't imagine that. But I have a valid reason for Facebook. Like my kids say, how come we cannot be on Facebook and you get, because my Facebook is my work. I get information for you guys, which is true. So I have valid reason. But what I'm trying to say is you have to get connected with people. I can tell you unto cow comes from how homeschooling is, but if you don't get connected with the people, because different people do differently. If I might be, I can never do unschooling 100%. I'm just not comfortable. And I won't pretend. And you shouldn't pretend too. So if you are a more structured person, and you like schedules and it makes you feel better, do it. If you are a syllabus kind of person, structured person, do it. If that is your way, what works for you might not work for me. Homeschooling is a very, very personal thing. It's a lifestyle thing. So you definitely can do when you're working. We have single mothers who are working, who homeschool. We have people who were homeschooled by the father instead of the mother. We have parents that are working. We have all sorts kind of people who are actually doing it. Or you can even send it to the center. So there are many ways. So as long as one, you sort out your objective. Second, you understand that kids have many ways to learn and you don't actually need hours of learning to learn. You just need, truthfully, after 5 years of homeschooling, I've never done 1 hour. Okay? I probably do 1 hour a week and post it on Facebook like that's my achievement for the whole month.
I totally agree with you.
Yes.
Isn't this like that? There will be days when you don't do anything.
Yes.
And really, and you won't do anything, but then you will be amazed. You sit down and read with your kid and you'll realize, hey, they jumped 2 levels. How did that happen without me? Of course it happened without you. They were living their life without you paying attention to them all the time. They were reading, they were doing things.
So it's very possible. But you need to get your, and the last one is very important because I don't meet up with people very frequent, but they are there virtually. And I don't think our homeschooling journey would ever be possible without Facebook. I have got strangers offering to teach my children and help out my children and open door for my children in unthinkable ways that I've never think it is possible before. So get yourself connected. It takes a village, even if it is a virtual village.
Thank you so much, Helen. I would also add, I'm an entrepreneur like yourself, and your business is a fantastic resource. They learn so much coming around with you. Yes, drag them along, because they will learn about entrepreneurship. They learn all of those skills too. It's not like learning only happens when you sit down with a book. Actually they are learning 24/7 actually. And they are learning about public speaking, they are learning about negotiation, they are learning about pricing, sales, so many things. They are learning from you as an entrepreneur, so don't discount that as a resource as well. That your business, what you do in there is also teaching them something.
Could I say something? I think that we are so focused on learning and what to teach, and we forget that actually it is a lifestyle and parenting as well. I think that you need to work out with your spouse how you're going to make sure that you are involved as parents in the lives of the children, whether they're unschooling or whether it's structured. Because at the end of the day, I realize that that relationship with your children is deepened and it helps their learning. So it's not so much of just dragging them along to your workplace, but you've got to make sure, work out the time so that your husband is involved in some way, and then after that you are involved in some way. So the connection between your children will be one of the most valuable resources, because after all is said and done, it's your relationship with the child that will stay, and also steer them on the right course. You know? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the last question was this lady over here with the M on her shirt in black. Okay, and this will be the final question. If you didn't get a chance to answer, don't worry, we have a break. You can mob us. Afterwards, we will try our best to answer your questions.
Hi, morning everyone, I'm Karen. My question is more towards to David. I'm a mother of a 3-year-old boy and 10 months, so I'm just starting to think about homeschooling. So I would like to know, how did you start out and what was it like in the beginning? You know, everyone is sending their kids to kindy, my friends around me, but I'm still thinking, my boy can't even wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. He's at 11, he wakes up, so I'm letting him be whatever he wants to be at the moment. So I'm toying with the idea of homeschooling to see how it goes. So I want to know, how did you start out? You know, what did you do in the beginning with to homeschool your
I
kids?
can ask my wife that.
I'm going to say that. I'm going to say we need your wife here.
I don't know whether Suk-Ching would like to answer that question, because actually we took it very easy, and you don't have to rush, because 3 years old or 3 months is too early, just let them play. You know, maybe Suk-Ching would just answer.
Yeah, maybe you can give the mic to Suk-Ching.
Okay, I think I really thank God for my husband and me finding out about homeschooling at the right time when the kids were just about, the older one was just about to enter into kindy. We sent him to kindy at 4 years old because everybody said, what, your kid not in kindy? So we said, and he suffered. He was bullied, he was beaten. He came home with teeth marks on his hand. And so after a few months of that, we said no. Okay, that was the time we read out about homeschool and we found out, and we decided he stay at home, 4 years old, play with his 2-year-old, and then I gave up my job, and I tell you, it was the best years of my life, enjoying the 2 boys. And what we did was basically we played, yes, and we read aloud just read storybooks, go library, borrow tons of books home, go to the playground every day, swimming pool every evening, and just play, and yeah, that's it. And they learn through playing, and they learn through, that's it. And then, and we really started structured, maybe not 10 years old, but they were learning so much. And talking about benchmarks, they never sat for any exams except piano exams. Okay, and even then, that was not every grade. We said, okay, let's just skip the grades. They sat for grade 2, grade 5, and Elliot sat for grade 8, and they had no other exams. So people were saying, what? How do you know where they stand? So one day, the auntie came from Singapore. Okay, let me test you, because they're very worried. give you a test, English test, math test, and amazingly they did so well. And I could give them. I was teaching in Town College at one time. I took back the English for that college, and they could do it. If you want to talk about benchmarks, they're going to be above the school level because the schools are so slow. They're learning because they love to. And you don't have to test because it might make them feel proud, So no need to go testing.
Thank you, Suchi, for that. So, I want to echo what she says is that it's really the best years of your life. I would say that too. I also gave up my career and I wanted to have something more flexible. So I left lecturing and started my own business and homeschool after that. And I have loved it. There are days, yes, you do want to pull your hair out. There are days. I'm not saying that there are not. But when you look back at it, you're like, we're having a lot of fun. And not only we're having a lot of fun, but I know my kids. And my kids talk to me about things. They're not hiding things from me. It's not like, Mom, you're so uncool, I don't want to be near you. Well, maybe there'll be a day like that, I don't know, but so far so good. And it's really been a joy, actually. And these are memories I can treasure that, I didn't give it to someone else. I get the time. I get to have them because one day I won't. One day they will be gone. They will be living their own lives, raising their own kids. Doing their own thing, and that's fine. But I just love the fact that I have them for those years, and I get to have those memories, and they have those memories too. So that's also the other really great plus point about homeschooling is strong families. And you can't beat that. Really, you can't. It's like the foundation of everything, your family. So they're feeling generous. They said one more person can ask.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to leave to Sherman by 2. Congratulations to Dr. Afzan. She's my lecturer in Militar. So we have to bring her to this tribe because I will join you all too. Okay, I was sponsored by my daughter Fatin. So all the children are homeschooling, but not mine. Now the question is all the W's I know, but the how. My daughter is in Form 1 now. Mr. Soon, you know KGV school? Yeah. So she is in the KGV Agama school. So which I prefer to her to be there. But she doesn't enjoy the class. She wants to be in KGV still, but in a normal class. The thing is that in our system, if you want to go out of KGV to the normal class, you have to go to another school and come back, which is not sure that you will be there in school. So the thing is that she doesn't want to be a homeschool. She wants to stay in KGV school. So even I told Fatin, I want to migrate to KL because I'm a single mother, the father just passed away, so I'm willing to spend and migrate here so that I have more friends over here to unschool my daughter. So please help me how to unschool my daughter.
Why do you want to unschool her?
She doesn't want to come here today.
Yeah, but she's enjoying school?
Not, she just enjoy her friends.
I'll just say something. This is the thing that, one thing that you need to get sorted out before you embark on homeschooling. The child has to be want to be homeschooled. If the child doesn't want to be homeschooled and the mother wants to be homeschooled, I can tell you it's going to be really miserable. After, we might be biased that you are hearing all these good things about homeschooling. But I can tell you, as a mother who have kids who have gone through school and homeschool is not perfect. There are disadvantages of homeschool, and there are homeschooling kids who won't be so impressive to you because they are all children, they take their own time to develop and stuff like that. Okay, we might brag about this kid that has done this or done that, but there are kids who are still nowhere, still in the cloud. So the kids need to want to be homeschooled and have a reason strong enough to be pulled out from school. Some kids just do very well with structure. Some kids love the competition in school. Some kids are very sociable that they thrive better in school. That when I have I know cases where the kids are very sociable and the mother thinks they are not doing really well in school. They pull them out in school and they are miserable because the mom has to compensate on what the kids are missing in school. You can't create school at home. You can never do that. So unless the kids want to be homeschooled, you can't do this. Because there are so many things in school that you can't compensate. Things like if the kids are very into sports. Having teenagers, I can tell you it is possible to compensate and probably do better on the extracurricular when homeschooled, but it does take a significant amount of effort from the parents. And maybe not everybody can do that. So let's get realistic on that. Yeah. So that's one thing that you need to sort out. You need to find out why, and if you have and you can also, it is also possible to settle on midways. Maybe after discussing with your daughter, there are certain things that she wants to do more. I know people who are in school but homeschool. Like the kids will be missing school on some days because they are doing stuff outside that they are passionate about. So you can do that, it is your choice. But at least keep the structure and you don't have to stress yourself about, okay, what have they learned, or I don't think I'm doing a good job. So really you need to get that sorted. So don't be surprised there are kids who love school. And school does have an advantage. There are certain things that school can do that homeschool can't. It is not the holy grail, and you can settle in the middle. So that's my point.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any? No, I'm sorry. She's shaking her head very vigorously and saying we should have to stop. Okay, but it's okay? Okay.
2 minutes, very fast. I think homeschool is a lifestyle. It's not at home. We choose to be at home. What I'm hearing is that your daughter, my daughter, right?
My daughter.
She knows what she wants. And to me, it's important to support her.
She wants to be a pilot.
Do it. Yeah. She's now in school, right? I'm sure to move to the main school. Right? If it takes so much time to fight for it, fight for it. Let her fight, support her. This lesson is going to be really valuable because she's fighting for something, she wants it, she knows she can go for it. Whether she gets it at the end, it doesn't matter, but the journey is important. So you have a huge learning opportunity right in front of you right now.
Thank you. So we're going to end there. I'm going to turn it back over to Sheila. Thank you very much.
I think we have, that was beyond a lot. And all of you are invited to have some refreshments at the back. Pardon the space so tight, so stay tuned. We'll come back here at 11:30 to listen to the youth perspectives. Yeah, thank you. Elliot and Andrew. All right, everybody ready? Kenyang already? Okay, FYI, this is my first time moderating. So what I learned from the homeschooling tribe is the best way to learn to do anything is just to do it. Anybody on wearing Nike shoes? Okay, next time we're gonna get Nike to sponsor us. Just do it. Okay, Bismillah. Welcome our youth panels. Because in interest of time, I'm not gonna ask them to introduce themselves. You can read their brief backgrounds in the booklet that you have? Yes, okay. Which is accurate, I hope. Everybody else got age inside except for one. So if you want to ask his age later, go and ask him. Alright, welcome. Oh my god, I feel so old. Okay, I'm just gonna jump straight to the first question. Okay, before that, just a little bit background. This youth over here, they come from various backgrounds, covering the spectrum of homeschooling. Some unschooled, meaning they've never been to school. Some have been to a few years of school. Some have spent a significant number of years in school. So you have the whole spectrum over here. And our first question is for everyone. When we heard the word homeschooling, the first thing that freaked people out is definitely is socialization. Your kids don't go to school, how do they socialize? So, to you, is this a fact or a myth? Yeah, we can start from there since you have the mic already.
Alright, hi, I'm Elliot. I'm David's son who was on the panel just now. So, yes, I would agree with him that socialization is a myth, right? You've heard what he has to say about it. I don't think I can really add much onto it, but what I want to say is that if you want your kids to be socialized, you know, the parents have to set an example. So what my parents did was that they dragged us on very deeply. If they were having a conversation with their friend, we would just, you know, be next to them, listening to them, hearing what they say, and then if they ask us questions, we would answer. We had many parents come to our house to ask for homeschooling. We would have to sit there and listen to the same questions over and over again. But how do you socialize? And then we would have to talk and speak. And you know, we would get used to that, so we don't really have a problem interacting with people of different ages. And I find that this is true of most homeschooling kids that I know. Because if the parents are leading the way, then the children will follow. Yeah, so it's fine. I have lots of friends, don't worry about it.
Hi, Anabila. Just what like Elliot say, if you homeschool, right, so you meet like a lot of people, so homeschooling forces you to like interact with people of different ages, different races, different religions. So when you get to talk to these kind of people, you know how to interact with them in a certain way. So like in classes, you would like have friends like of your same age. So like you don't know how to interact with adults when you meet them. So I find that homeschooling is a very good social place where you want to talk to people. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Two things, right? One is echoing Elliot's point. I think it has to be very much driven by the parents. Socialization can be overcome. So basically, you know, as the parents, if you don't do anything and the kid just stays at home, pretty much you're going to face a problem with socialization problem. But for example, my parents, we had football, we had various homeschooling friends, we had church as well. So you have to drive those opportunities for the kid to socialize. Second thing is, even with that, I think probably homeschooling tends to lend itself more to introversion on the balance. So you know, it doesn't mean that socialization is going to be a problem, but in all likelihood, the child will grow up a little bit more, less of an extrovert, I think.
Okay, as an unschooler, I find that it's actually very difficult to not, to actually be antisocial, because my mom, she actually doesn't really sit down and teach me anything. It's all outside. If we don't homeschool, we kind of world school in that sense. So we go for tons of different classes, different co-ops, different meetings, and you're just around a ton of different people. So for unschoolers and homeschoolers alike, I find it like it's just effortless for us to really socialize and connect to anyone. And yeah, like Elliot said, most homeschoolers and unschoolers, we tend to fall on the more introverted spectrum. I think, like me personally, I'm a bit picky with the kind of people I want to have conversations with, because I don't find it great if I have a conversation with someone and it's not mutually beneficial, we can't inspire someone, we can't be inspired, I find it like a waste of both people's time, both parties. So I'm perfectly happy, yeah, being homeschooled. And if you just happen to catch me in a time where I, don't really feel like talking to those people, then maybe I would fall more on the introverted or antisocial side. But then if I'm speaking to someone who's, really interesting and they have lots to share, then you would see me as someone who's like really outgoing and really chatty. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to say that the school people, they're like when they around their age, they're like since their school is like all their age most of the time, right? Like if you go like this crowd, like there's everyone of all ages, like 6 years old to 40 years old, they will like maybe just stay with their parents all the time, right?
Alright, thank you. And Fai is currently going through a mentorship with an orang asli, right? Trying to learn how to use barang and all the life skills. How many of anybody, not even children, our adults can say that, right? It's such a privilege to have that close relationship with somebody with such skills that's going to be lost maybe in the next 10 years because it's not in the curriculum. Alright, on my personal experience after being sucked into the tribe for almost 2 years, yeah, I learned a lot also about socialization. I get questions from 5-year-old. One time I was at their house and it was so hot I took off my tudung because they were only women and kids. And the boy went to me, you have hair. Yes, dear, I do have hair. And then the question went on and said, why on earth do you put on that stuff? Isn't it hot? And I was dumbfounded. I cannot really answer. Because I can answer if you ask me. I can answer to a 30, 40-year-old. But how can I make a 6-year-old understand? Right? So it was also an eye-opener for me, a learning experience for me as well, how to socialize outside of my comfort zone, people who take things for granted like this, right? So so for me as well, not only just for my kids, I also learned how to socialize in the real sense, talk to real people, which is not inside my little group. Alright, next question is to Nabila and Fai, because just because you guys are still in that schooling age, school people. So, so the question to you guys, can you help describe a typical day? Because we had questions like, what kind of syllabus, what time should they wake up, at what time they have recess, should I bring school at home, should I just copy the timetable of school and just do it at home? So please describe, this is an unschooling vibe, and also schooled Nabila has been schooled until you guys are, yes, and now has been unschooled, homeschool for a couple of years, yes, okay. Fine, you want to start and share with us how does your day unfold and what do you do with your day? Do you have less gala in front of the TV or what?
Yeah, but after question, because I don't have it all day. Yeah, so
just choose one. What would you do? Okay, if you are in your house in PD, what would you do?
I will just, most for people my age, just wake up and then just sit again, just sometimes don't brush my teeth, sometimes.
Okay, what else do? You explore the beach and what do you do there?
Yeah, but I guess sometimes just laze around all day and just watch TV.
Okay, your answer is just going to freak them out. So, I will answer on his behalf.
But that's the most, if you just say in PD, that's what it is. If I have good things, then I'll go to my classes.
Okay, what kind of classes do you have?
I have my Wing Chun class in Seremban, martial arts class, and then on Wednesday I have my Scouts, and then the day after I have my bushcraft survival
skills class. Okay,
yeah,
And okay, he has Wing Chun. You know Wing Chun? Ip Man 1, Ip Man 2, Ip Man 3. If you don't know, I'm gonna start and make the move. So
That's great.
that is so dope.
Yeah, but that is so fake as well. The movie is fake. It's all just fake.
Oh yeah, kah?
Yeah.
So anti-climax. Okay, anyway. So, again, your answer is freaking them out. So anyway, this guy is awesome. He's just being honest actually. If you go to his house, I've been to his house, he has built a tree house from the driftwoods that he collected from the shore. His house is by the beach. So they go to the beach and collect driftwoods, and he built the tree house by himself. He can also carve wood from that stick into swords. Using just one arm. Yeah. So what is Pino did? He's lying with the gadget. So no, his gadget is parang. So he's using it. So when he said gadget, don't think iPad. It's parang, right? Half. All right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Nabila.
Since I've been like I'm more into academic path. So since I'm taking my IGCSE next year, my family has been like gathering around a lot of people for on a co-op cross-study group. It's called Team Demigods. So usually the class starts about 10, and then we students just like lead the study discussions. So it will be like research and like presentation. There are tutors that's going to guide us. But usually most of the time we do most of the work, and then we just study about like 4 or 6 hours, and then we just like play around in the park. So that's mostly my typical day. I go to the co-op for Tuesdays until Thursdays. Other day I would just chill and just like play video games and study sometimes. But
so in a typical week you would have about 3 out of 7 weeks, 7 days, sorry. Study group, if I were to use that word, right? But that is pretty much different from the typical school because it's child-led. I mean, you guys take charge of your learnings and what to do.
And we don't really usually follow the schedule. We have a structured schedule, but most of the time we just go with the flow. If it's like raining, then we just stay indoors. If it's like not raining, we just go outside. So we just like go with the flow. It's not really a structured schedule. Not that structured, but we just...
So you have an objective. Share with us an objective, for example, write a book report. What do you guys do when you guys get together?
Usually we just like lead a topic of a subject, like math. So we just talk about trigonometry. So we just lead the conversation, and sometimes we do a little bit of activities. If we don't understand, then the tutors will help us. But most of the time we just lead the conversation, like we will lead a topic, and if we don't understand, we would discuss with each other. So it's more of a like social learning with each other, because I can't do learning on my own because it's very hard for me to learn on my own. So this study group has helped me to understand a lot of stuff with the help of other friends also.
So how does that compare to a normal school?
Normal school is like usually the teachers will teach you, and if you have questions, they will just like answer it. But you don't understand it in a very in-depth. But if you go for homeschooling, the study group, you have to force yourself to understand, because there are no teachers that's going to tell you like there's going to be a test or whatever. So you have to like set yourself, and you have to understand it on your own with the help of others also, and the help of your own. You have to be more self-reliant on yourself to be able to study.
Okay, thank you so much. Any of you want to add your good old days, the younger days? Do you remember if it's something that different from Fai or Nabila?
So for my brother and I, our focus was really on reading and writing, because for us, for our family, right, we believe that if you know how to teach yourself, if you know how to learn, then you can basically learn anything. And what you need to do to get there is that you need to be able to read and to write. You need to be able to know what to pick out from something that you're reading. You need to know how to make critical decisions or what's important. So stuff like Auntie Amy's class on critical thinking and problem solving, that was really good for us. We learned how to set goals, we learned how to work towards them, we learned how to record our times, the things that we needed to do. We kept journals, we looked at ourselves, we were introspective, we looked at ourselves and learned, we looked at the things we were doing and we learned about what we had taken away from that. If we were going to climb Mount Kinabalu, which we did with Jenny and a bunch of other homeschoolers, we planned that ourselves. The trip, we climbed up ourselves, we prepared everything ourselves. Our parents just sent us to the airport and they came with us, and then they dropped us off at the mountain and said, bye, we'll see you in 2 days. And then we went up and then we came down. So, it's good. And then after that, you have to think about it, what did we learn? So you basically apply them to everything, and even if our days at home were not structured, even if we could wake up at 10 or 11 and only finish our work at midnight, as long as we did something, as long as we learned something, as long as we took away something, that was the important thing.
Cool. All right, thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so this is a question to all of you. What is the most difficult thing about being homeschooled? Yeah, man, I take it up and then we could.
Right. So I think this changes depending on the person and the family. For me, at least, I know I was quite a lazy child. Yeah, so self-discipline is something that I still struggle with even to this day. So it's, I think that because our homeschooling was not as structured, right, that has also led some bad habits to me. But the important thing is that I know what the bad habits are. And because I know what the bad habits are, right, I can feel bad about it until I finally push myself to do it. Yeah, so there's the self-awareness there that really helps to help you. Yeah, so I think it can be difficult for a person to study by himself, which is why I think when the parents get involved with the kids, it also becomes easier. I mean, after a certain age, right, the things that we were studying, my mom did not really know about. We were doing science, and this was something that she hadn't done for maybe 20 years, and she had no idea what was all these newfangled things. So, like my brother had to ask his church friends about math questions because our math is terrible. So when we couldn't know how to do something by ourselves, we had to have the discipline to either ask people or to search the internet for that. Yeah. So, discipline.
For me, since my mom usually go to work every day, so when I wake up, like usually when I'm in bed, nobody can ask me to wake up. So I have to wake up on my own. Because if I don't go to school, there's no teacher is going to be like, oh, Nabila, you didn't go to school today. And I'm like, so if you homeschool, right, you have to have this self-discipline to motivate yourself to wake up in the morning and to eat breakfast. Because if you don't have that self-discipline, you would just sleep and do the things that you want to do, which is like, I don't know, watch TV or something. So I feel like self-discipline is very important. Self-control is also very important because you have to know how to have fun, but at the same time, you have to know when to not have fun. You have to put a limit to everything you do. Well, like when you play video games, you have to know when to stop and get into focus mode.
Again, I think you will hear self-discipline mentioned probably by all of us, and that's just a sign of how true it is, right? For myself, I think the thing about homeschooling is that you're kind of thrown, you suddenly have all this choice, all this option, and that's an amazing thing. But at the same time, it can also be a bit paralyzing, right? It's difficult. Where do you go from there? I think what helps a lot. So for me, the toughest part was really suddenly you have all this time. I mean, 24 hours in a day is quite a lot of time. And how do you fill it? I think my mom especially did a very good job of structuring the environment such that we were forced to learn. For example, the case was no TV during weekdays. at all, no computer even. And what that does is it forced me and my sister really that you can't watch TV, you can't use the computer. Kids naturally, you get quite bored. But what we were very encouraged was to read. An example was she would bring us to Borders, say like go and get 2-3 books, like whichever books, I don't care, just get it, and then we can go back and read it. So that part helped a lot, like with really being able to figure out what you have to do, I think. So yeah, that's it, the discipline, but the environment really shapes that. Because if I imagine in my case, if I had been allowed to watch TV all day, I probably would have.
Okay, so being an unschooler, I think the most difficult thing, yes, yet the most, something that drives you the most is the fact that your life is really in your hands. Like you don't have a safety net of school or university and things like that. So basically you're the one like disciplined, you have to be the one who drives yourself to do things. Otherwise you would probably remain a couch potato for your whole life. And when you think about that, that's not a very nice thought, I think. And yeah, but when you think of it, it's just really scary when you're the only person that can really project you far in the future. And also it's something that drives you the most, because it's pretty much limitless when you think of it. Like you have 24 hours in a day, and when you think about it, you're the only person who can make the best use of that time, which is great. But it's like the sky's the limit, really. Okay. Is this the only problem of all homeschoolers? Everyone is just like this?
I cannot moderate that. Okay. Okay. Yeah. What to you? What is the most difficult thing?
Yeah.
Being homeschooled, is discipline, self-discipline.
Yeah. If you change the words a little bit, I guess you can right on it.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Like maybe strangers come to you and say, "Why are you not in school? Are you homeless or what? Something like that?" No, you don't get that. Do you need help? Should I call the Jabatan Kebajikan or something? Never get that. Okay, cool. I just want to share my experience of pulling out my 12-year-old. She's at the back. Yeah, when the first liberation came, it was her that asked to be pulled out of school for a different reason. Again, we need another forum for that. So when I and my husband said, okay, look, we take 1 year and we see how. That was when she was in year 4. So the plan is, if it didn't work out, we can always put it back into the system in year 6, right? Just in terms of UPSR. So yeah, the first few months was like that. It was the never-ending gala, like said before. And she came to me and said, what should I do? Where is my timetable? She came to me and said, hey, hello, if you are expecting me to bring school to home, you're wrong. Because I have younger kids, I have 4. I have no time to sit down with you and say, this is your desk, this is now do this, 10 o'clock recess, go outdoor. I have no energy, I have no focus to do such things. So I said, you want to be homeschooled, you figure it out. So she spent a few months solid watching movies. And I freaked out, but I tried to be cool. My husband freaked out. Every time he came home, he'd be like, what have you done today? Did you do your maths? Did you went on the Han Academy? And when she said nothing, then his BP level went up. So it went on for a few months, a solid few months. She just did nothing. Until she had enough. She also wanted to muntah of doing nothing. And she felt worthless of doing nothing. Right? So this self-realization that you just heard, this one is not being told by the mom, being nagged by the mom, don't waste your time, go and do study. No, they feel this is wrong. I have all this liberty. With freedom comes responsibility, right? So I have to do something. So now she's figuring out things on her own. She has her own schedule. She has her own what she wants to do when she wants to do science, math, and everything is online now. All are free. Khan Academy is awesome. TED Talks are awesome. She learns all this stuff, cooler than the stuff that's inside the syllabus, if you ask me. So, yeah. So the next question. For those who've been to school, what do you miss about school? Karen, you've been to school. Yeah.
Okay, so I was schooled from kindergarten till the age of 8. And when I first got pulled out, I was homeschooled, not unschooled yet. And at that time, it was my sense of worthiness, because my sense of worthiness relied on my grades a lot. So, because when I was in school, I was that perfect straight A student, and that's where I got my sense of worthiness from. Whenever I get my paper back and it's marked 100 over 100, that made me feel good, it made me feel worthy. So when I was unschooled, or homeschooled first, I couldn't get that at all, because things weren't marked, and we just did a lot of other things that I don't get an A back, and I don't have teachers praising me and things like that. So how do I feel good about myself? How can I feel proud enough of my work if it doesn't get graded? So over the last few years, I guess I've learned how to find it within myself, and yeah, that was the most difficult thing at first.
To be honest, I actually don't miss anything about my school at all. It's just that I don't regret going to school, because at my school I've learned a lot of stuff. I went to Chinese school for 8 years, and then I've learned Chinese, and then I can speak it fluently right now. And then I feel I don't regret it. It's just that I don't miss it. I don't miss it. It's just like I like homeschool better than school.
Alright, our next question, okay, this is for the adults. Karen, Jenyu, and Elliot. Do you guys feel like having a college degree is important to succeed in life?
As someone without a college degree, let me just put things into perspective for you. So I'm 24, I'm 25 in December, and I dropped out of university 3 years ago. Right? So I did my O-levels and I got straight A's, and then I went to KD to do my foundation. I did reasonably well, and then somewhere along the way, I bought into the idea that these grades, they were a measurement of who I was as a person. And then when I went to university, right, when I did my degree, somehow that translated into anxiety, and it turned into a mild depression, and then I dropped out, and then my parents were like, this is fine, and that was surprising to me, because I had been wrapped up so in myself, thinking that I needed to do this, and then my parents said, this is okay. So I was telling them, I felt like I was casting shame on the family. This is like the Chinese, must save face and all that, but after all that, right, they said it was fine, and then they gave me space. They let me, they let me to explore what I wanted to do. So I taught at my mom's school for a little while. I went to my dad's office to do copywriting at his advertising firm. Currently now I am working at a refugee youth center run by Malaysian Care, which is an NGO that does social work in many different areas. It's just opened up near my house, and I'm very thankful to be there, because they have accepted me. They have shown that I am not measured by my academics. I think what I've learned from this entire trial in these few years is that I love who I am because of what I can give to other people. That's something that I learned in homeschooling, and then somehow along the way I just dropped the ball, and then now I'm slowly learning to pick that up back again. So no, homeschoolers are not perfect. I'm not perfect. And I think that if you go into homeschooling expecting perfection, expecting people to do supremely well, to become the next Mark Zuckerberg and all that, people disappoint. That's what people are. But if we teach them to love themselves, if we teach them to have the self-confidence, to love learning, I think that's important. That's what gives meaning.
So with regards to, is a college degree important for success in life, right? That's the question. So first two parts, I think. So the first part really being around how do you define success? I mean, saying that success is quite a personal thing. I think we have to face that. And so definitely, it's not everything needs a college degree for success. I think the school community shows, we have fairly diverse talents, making music, right? With Amita. So, but at the same time, I don't think we should not go too far the other way and start basically punishing or penalizing academic success, right? And if you're going to be real, like if your kid, say for example, knows that he wants to do computer science, then code, let's say, he's really into coding, then one, you have to push him to explore that. That's super important, right? Not just say, oh, I'm passionate about computer science, that doesn't mean anything. You have to push him. And secondly, if he really is passionate and good at it, then he will probably find himself most, excelling best at a really good computer science school, Stanford, for example. So you've got to draw the line at where you think how you define success, and if how you define success falls within a field that requires a college degree, then I think you should just go for it. So, and at the same time, I think the whole academics as a sense of your worthiness, definitely we should stay away from that. But just also as a reminder that for me, so I had an amazing university experience. It was literally like the most intellectually stimulating place I've ever been, and I don't think I will ever. Which school did you go to this? I studied history at Oxford. So it was the kind of place where people got drunk and then after that retired to the junior common room and started debating philosophy. It was that kind of place, and the scientists who joined in with their points of views and all that. So there is a quality to college beyond just how you define success. I think that's something to recognize as well.
Yeah. Okay. So for my answer, it's both a yes and no. So yes, it's a great add-on, I think, going to college. If you're in it with the right intentions and the right reasons. Like for me right now, I'm in a French pastry art institute. So I guess you could call that college. And I'm in it not for the paper qualification at the end that says, I have this diploma, but I'm in it because I want to be mentored by the chefs over there. And I think I can gain a lot of knowledge in it, which I won't be able to get elsewhere, because it's just, a good center where all these brilliant chefs are, which I can learn from. So even though I was unschooled for so long and I haven't taken any exams and all that, I still think it's good to not be an unschool or homeschool purist. Like if you see that opportunity and if it's a great add-on to your life, then you should go for it. And also, it's not really important, I find, if you don't like the idea of college, because there are so many other ways up the ladder to just success. If your definition of success is being like recognized in your field and being able to do your job. Because like for me, I guess I'm already pretty well known in the cake decorating industry, despite only now having, I guess, in the midpoint of my diploma. It's because there's just so many other routes to the top, which doesn't require you to just climb that ladder. Like for me, I joined lots of competitions from a very young age, and that allows you to get recognized and you get pulled into jobs right away and all that. So it's definitely very possible. There are so many different routes out there depending on the industry that you're planning to get into. And also, I guess it helps a lot that I'm a more artistic person instead of an academic person. So yeah, like a paper qualification doesn't really show much, because when I get employed, they employ me for my skills and the reputation I have and all that. So kind of a lot easier for me. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Next question. There is also a perceived perception that this homeschool family, the children are having a sheltered life from the real world. People ask, how are you going to interact with the real world? They have to face, there are bullies out there, you know, there are people who have been schooled. So, do you have problem mingling with the school people, school peers, your cousins? Do you have that difficulty to talk? School, right?
Yeah.
So do you have difficulties mingling with them?
I guess sometimes because they're like more bossy than homeschoolers sometimes. Yeah. The people that I meet now, because I went with you.
Alright, okay.
So they're bossy, and then they want things their way. So for example, we choose like who wants to play this game kind of thing. Like I choose this game and they choose this game, and two of them choose the exact same game. Like my school.
I see. Alright. I'm not too sure if that's the result of the school. Maybe it's the result of parenting. I don't know. Okay, anyway. Okay, so you find, okay, alright, that's your difficulty, alright. Okay. Any other thing, like you have nothing in common, like maybe they complain about homework and you do have homework?
Yeah.
That is also weird, right? It's very weird. And they complain about their they make jokes about their teachers. You cannot make jokes about your mom.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Yeah, that's the thing. You can't joke about your mom. Right? I feel sorry for you. Come on, Karen.
Okay, I'll have to admit that I had a tough time interacting with teenagers during my mid-teens, I guess, because our priorities in life were just so different. Like in terms of the topics of conversation and things like that, they would want very shallow, I guess shallow, on the surface kind of conversations, whereas I enjoy things on a deeper level, and I just prefer conversations like that. So I couldn't really understand why they would spend so much time talking about nothing. Yeah, so I had a tendency
to become minister. Let's not go there. Sorry.
So during most of my teenage years, I spent more time speaking to adults more than people my age, really, which has been extremely beneficial because right now, since I'm in like college and being around people, I mean older people a lot more, it helps me, really look the adult in the eye and have a proper conversation with them. It doesn't make me shy away just because they're supposed to be superior or extremely respected or something like that. We can have a proper conversation.
You?
So in terms of shelter, I think probably yes. Probably yes. I say that because so something that I've had a chance because of homeschooling, and then after that IGCSEs at a private school and then universities, basically to interact with very different kind of types of people. And I think every type you definitely see gets exposed to certain things that the others don't. What I mean by that is, so for example, as a homeschooler, you probably will take part in a lot of like cool projects that no one else gets to. For example, like building a tree house. We did Mount Kinabalu on ourselves as 14-year-olds, I think. Pretty amazing. But then like, if you look at other types, for example, if I think of the international school kids, probably quite sheltered in a different way. I mean, homeschoolers, you wouldn't have grown up with all that wildness that that they would have grown up with, the partying, and all that, right? If you think of maybe more government school kids, they'd probably be more exposed to things like bullying or just more like sordid stuff anyway. So so definitely a little bit sheltered. I don't think that's necessarily a huge thing to worry about. You will have to face it eventually, I think, when you come out in life. So my story, for example, was the first couple of terms in university was a little bit tough for me. For example, just coming from pretty much quite a safe sort of background, and then you went to university. Britain is notorious for that kind of drinking, getting on the lash, right? Which is basically downing shots until you are ready to pass out. for me that was like huge culture shock, right? Didn't know how to handle that at all. So sheltered. But in terms of, I think, possibly meeting that at 19 years old, being a bit more certain as to where I stood with regards to that, rather than say meeting that at 15 or 14 like the rest of them, and then you just go through that culture. And you never even learn to question.
Since I went to school before, so I know how to interact with school people. So I know like the trend and all, because school people tend to talk more about like what is trend instead of, you don't really have opinions. So when I ask them, what do you think about Donald Trump? Bad, I guess. So right, they don't really have this deeper understanding of things. So it's hard when I talk to them. Then they just like, the conversations are not as deep as I experience with other people. I've been interacting with a lot of adults because I follow my mom to work sometimes, and they just tend to talk property to me, and I'm like, okay. So like homeschooling, it's not that it's like depends on the family. If the family decided that you want to stay home, then I guess you have to be sheltered. But it's important for you to interact with the world so you can build a voice and have these opinions and talk to people of different types.
Yeah, to build on that, I think having been able to interact with people of different worldviews, you have different races, you have different religions, you learn about what's happening in the world. So why do some people think Donald Trump is a nice guy? Why do some people want to vote for Hillary Clinton? Why do some people want to, even in our own country, why do people not like our Prime Minister? So when you hear all these things from people older than you, who have hopefully more wisdom than you, and then you can learn something from them, I think you are able to draw lines around what you believe and what you think. You're able to say, why do you think the things you do? Why do you believe the things you do? But if you spend time only with people of the same age, you're basically stuck at the same level. Yeah. So I don't think we are sheltered in that sense. I think that being able to be open to more experiences enables us to learn something greater about ourselves.
I'm sold. Okay, thank you so much. All right. Yeah, I mentioned, right, this is purpose, it's only for me. Okay, anyway. Thank you so much. I have two more questions, but time's running out. I think I want to open the floor for questions. If you guys have, yes, please. Behind you, there's a mic.
My name is Dora, currently homeschooling my 7-year-old kids in form. Would you say that homeschooling somehow contribute towards your strong identity? Would you say that you guys have your strong identity?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that, because homeschooling or unschooling in my case, it gives us a lot of necessary time to really sit with ourselves without any noise, and to really get to know yourself and your demons and be able to work through it. So yeah, I think it's the best thing really, because we have that time, and yeah, like it's just you with yourself a lot of the time. Sometimes, especially as an unschooler, we don't really have much structure and all that. So as a growing child, I think, yeah, we do need that time, because otherwise we'll just be so lost with the influences around us and the world around us telling us to be that, be this. So at the end of it, maybe we'll even lose who we are or what we have to offer the world, and that's quite sad. Yeah.
I think, as I was saying earlier, when you homeschool, it's a choice that not just the parents make, it's a choice that the child makes. And when you make choices, I think that defines your identity as well. I choose to be a Christian. I chose to homeschool. At least make up my identity.
Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm Nina. I'm homeschooling my 10-year-old. He's a preteen, so he's a bit grumpy sometimes. He's less grumpy now that he's out of school. He's better now, somehow happier. I'm just wondering, most of you have gone, except you, little one, so most of you have gone through your teenage years, and how do you feel about being with your parents most of the time? Do you feel any kind of negative, was there any negative elements at all? Do you wish for something?
Thank you for asking.
I think when you homeschool, like the only friend you have is your parents. So you have to see their face every single day, and then you will just think like, are they your friends or are they your enemy? And you're confused. So I feel like your parents will like be there to support you. So I feel like they are there. So you have to be more like open to your child, so that your child will tell you things. Because if you're in school, the child will not. They will just go to school and then they sleep and then they don't tell you things. So it's hard for you to be open to your children, and your children. It's very hard for your children to say things in a deeper way to you. So I feel like you have to like let your children just grow like that, and then to just be friendly with them. Don't be like stressful to them or something like that. You just have to be like a friend, be there for them, and then listen to them, give them advices, and just, I think if you be more open and be more liberal to them, I feel like your child would trust you more, and the child will tell you things that maybe you haven't heard before.
How about you guys? Did you have any tough, pre-puberty, puberty time? You know what I say? With your parents, do you feel awkward at all?
Okay, I think for me it was completely different from Nabila. Like most of my preteen years or teen years, I spent it away from home, like, going out for lots of classes, lots of camps, so I didn't really, spend much time around my parents. Even now, I'm constantly traveling and I'm home much at all. So that makes me actually value my parents a lot more. So whenever I see them, I want to have a deep conversation with them or discuss things or ask them for their views on stuff. Because I don't get that time very much, so I better make the best use out of it. So perhaps the best thing you could do is maybe like create that distance so they will miss you and not you more.
Okay, noted.
Send them away.
Mount Kinabalu. Is that far enough? Karen went to Ecuador. She spent a year? Yeah, a year in Ecuador when she was 16. Okay, Alisa, your passport ready. Ecuador. Alright, anybody else have questions for you? You do. Okay, Alisa.
Hello. I am the daughter that she talked about. So now that you know that I spent like a few months doing nothing, I was actually doing something. So from the booklet, I read that most of you had your own passion. Like Fai has his wood carving and Nabila has a poetry. So I want to know how did you get to know that passion? Did you have to go through, did you have to learn different things first? I don't make sense, I know.
Yeah, I guess so.
How did you find your passion? When did it come?
I guess after reading a bunch of like survival and bushcraft books, then I guess like, I want to try this, let's see what happens. Then I guess, then now I'm going to after.
Okay, Karen, you're into cakes.
Yeah, so for me, it was also during that school detox period. So I basically binged on like video games, computer, TV for a year. Between my period of like homeschooling and unschooling, it was that transition. My mom was just like, let's just completely don't do anything, you can do whatever you want to do. So for me, that was like, playing games and going on YouTube and things like that. So you just get bored of it, after a certain period of time. And I was on YouTube, and then on that suggestion link feed over there, I found this like cupcake icing video, and I was like, oh, that looks very interesting. 3 types of different swirls you can do with one tip. So I clicked on it, and I was like, wow, this looks pretty fascinating. I want to try it out. So the next day, I just bought ingredients, and I tried baking some simple cupcakes with buttercream frosting. And from then on, I was just hooked. There was more tutorials and more baking, and my mom, she realized how passionate I was about it, and she suggested that I should go for maybe some simple classes, and they were nice enough to accept a 12-year-old, so yeah, it just went on from there.
So my passion kind of starts far earlier, and I only discovered it way later. So the story is basically, I was fairly lost after I did my IGCSEs. I took a fairly standard list of 7 subjects, mixture of sciences and math, some arts, did quite well, and then suddenly I'm like, okay, so now I've got, A's across all my subjects. What do I want to do for A-levels? And I really wasn't sure, and so I decided to take a gap year, and throughout this gap year at one point I was just talking to a family friend who is an actor actually, that's his livelihood. And we were talking, and I said, actually I kind of like history. And then he asked like, so why don't you study history? And I had never even thought at that point that I could study history at university. That's just how, Chinese family, right? Liberal Chinese family, but still Chinese family. I was about to probably go off and do engineering if he had said that to me. But the point was like, at that point it just made so much sense, and that was because for years back, right, starting with 10 maybe, we started I read there's this fantastic series, Horrible Histories. Fantastic stuff. He does it in comics and whatnot, and I mean it's a mixture of comics, very, very entertaining, loved it. Then you start doing other things. I started, there was a project, various other historical projects that we did at home. Later on I did like this, we looked at the national syllabus and we said, oh, okay, maybe this is how we should change it as part of a project with other teams, and we presented that to a civil society group. So things like that. I mean, the point here is that I discovered my passion at 17, but that process really started 7+ years ago.
My passion is more into like writing. So I've learned that to discover my passion, I have to interact more with other people. Because back then I didn't know people can like make money out of performing poetry. So I've learned through that, and I've been attending shows right now, and I'm very intrigued. So it's important for you to interact with a lot of people and like know their story, and like you have to don't rush your time to find your passion. I feel like you just have to go with the flow, and just take your time. Because if you think, let's say if you want to be a pilot, then maybe if it doesn't work out, then it goes different ways. There's still a lot of time for you to discover your passion. And even if you're until you're an adult, 24, 25, 30, you can still follow your passion. You can still change it last minute.
Yeah, well, in my case at least, when I was growing up, I'm still growing up, I have never really known what my passion was. When people say, what's your passion? I have never really known how to reply, because I would say that I'm fairly good at several things. I can play music quite well. I can write. Recently, people tell me that when I speak, it sounds nice to them. So, all these things maybe what some people would call their passions, but I've never really felt that deep urge inside me, that says this is something that I want to do. So I think when you say passion, right? If you ever find your passion, let me know your secret, because I don't know what my passion is. But yeah, okay. To round up, what I meant to say was that, you know, whatever you do, whether it's your passion or not, the point is that you should do it well, even if it's not your passion. Yeah, so if you find your passion, great, good for you. You've unlocked something special and you should keep at it. But if you haven't found it, like me, if you're unsure what's happening, you know, whatever you choose to do, just explore, find out what you want to do. Just do things, try random stuff. Go climb a mountain.
Alright, any other question? Yes, hold on. So that the back, yeah.
Everybody talks about the role of parents in homeschooling, but parents are not the only people you interact with. You do interact with others. What maybe you can talk about is, where do you get inspiration outside of your parents, like other people? Maybe that have helped you with your passions, or that you felt really inspired you, or got you moving in another direction, because you know your universe is not just your parents, and as you get older you need to branch out and meet other people that would impact your life. So maybe you can share about that.
Most of my inspirations come from the internet. 99% of them come from the internet. So I just like, no, seriously, because there's this YouTube channel, it's called Button Poetry. I discovered it and I'm in love with it, and all because of YouTube, you know. So I feel like you have to embrace the internet and just like, because if that channel doesn't exist, I don't even know like I'm into poetry. So I feel like besides in your parents, internet. Yeah, just, I'm not trying to say that you spend a lot of time on the internet, but like at least consider to go on the internet and find some of your inspirations and your environment also, and your friends too.
Yes, I'll have to echo what she said. I got a lot of my inspiration from the internet because it's just limitless. Like what you see around you, it can be pretty limited. You can only see these things around you. You can't go to like a billion places in a day, but on the internet you can. And also, I think I'll have to credit my very inspiring friends. I'm close to a bunch of unschoolers, and they never fail to inspire me because they're like go-getters and they're all chasing their dreams and things like that. So I get a lot of energy and inspiration from them. Also, as someone who travels, I get to meet so many fascinating people, and people who lead very different lives and are passionate about different things. So just hearing different opinions of people around me and different perspectives of the world, it really does make you think about things, and it can even like change your entire mindset. So I think I'm someone who enjoys doing something I call brain picking. So I like to like pick one person, and I want to like know exactly what's going on in your mind down to like the deepest bits. And I find that very fascinating, and I try to do it with as many people as possible, because almost everyone, they're passionate about something, I think, not really, but they just know something very well. They feel very deeply about something, and it's just interesting to know what goes on in everyone's head, and you can just compile it, see what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and yeah, it's great.
Okay. Yes. Do we have the mic? We have extra exercise today, Crystal. Thank you.
Hi. Do homeschoolers go through the rebellious stage during your teenage years, or is it all rosy because mommy and daddy is with you?
You want your parents out of the... Yeah, we need to
get my parents out. Yes, I was pretty rebellious, and I think you heard about how I was in Ecuador for a year on my own. So I was in school, and there were like no rules and stuff like that. So yes, unlike most homeschoolers, I had a pretty unsheltered experience, I guess. So I did the whole drinking, partying, having a boyfriend thing. And yeah, but being so close to my family and unschooling for so many years, I think it keeps you grounded in a way, like your values and things like that. So it didn't really lead me astray. So they were like, you know, experiences, but I don't think I would want to have a life full of being rebellious. And yeah, I learned so many things from being rebellious, I think, that I wouldn't have learned if I was completely sheltered. Because I know the kind of person that I am right now, like I don't want to do that, maybe I can like add a bit of this into my life and things like that. So being rebellious isn't really bad. It really shows you who you are as a person.
Going through, example, going through puberty, right? Then you have these kind of like moods, and then when your mom's like, go and eat your dinner, and you're like, no, I don't want to eat my dinner. So it's like that where you feel like you want to just follow your mood, and overcoming it is very important because when you go past your puberty, then you feel like you are in control of your own emotions and you know how to feel when you're not feeling anything, I guess. And then I feel like being rebellious and making all these kind of mistakes is good because you can learn from them.
No more? Okay. Any other question? Yes, sir.
Yep. Just to say thanks to all of you for solving midlife crisis. I didn't realize it begins at your age.
I should judge more.
Thanks. Not really a question. It's just a statement.
Anybody else? We have another half of hour. Yes, please at the back.
Hi, I'm Emma, mother of 3. I can see that you guys are the line of successes among the homeschoolers. Do you have any friends that consider like
homeschoolers dropouts?
Yes. Probably like failure towards the homeschooling kind of thing.
No need to name names.
I won't call it a failure. Like I have some friends who tried homeschooling but it didn't work out for them. But the failure is not as much as failure, but like the least they did was they went back to school. But that's it. They told me that it was a pretty interesting experience, but it just didn't work out for them because homeschooling is not for everyone. And when it's not for them, you just have to go back to school.
Okay, so I have actually seen, I guess, what you call homeschool failures. It's actually quite scary. I met this family and basically the type of homeschooling they do is school at home. So they have, tests, exams and things like that. And it's very structured and scheduled. Also, the curriculum that they're doing is a hyper-religious one where everything links back to religion. So their kids, I find them a bit, like they don't fit into society very well because everything links back to religion. You can't really have a decent conversation with them, and like both their kids are like depressed and stuff like that because they can't figure out why they can't fit into the world because their parents were just so controlling. They were just overly controlling. You can't go out with these friends because you're not religious, and you can't do this because of certain reasons. So in the end, they're just very basically your stereotypical homeschooling, living under a rock kind of thing. They do exist, and it's just really due to what their parents exposed them or really did not expose them to.
I think to add on that, so I can think of examples of friends who maybe you can say are a bit more lost in life than they would like to be. But I mean, if I look at the friends that I have kids who come from government schools, private schools, and who turn out also very self-aware, very driven, very comfortable with who they are, with a strong sense of identity. So what really connects it, right? Clearly it's not just about school versus homeschooling, it's really about the parents. I think what homeschool does, how I've always seen it, is it amplifies the impact of parenting. Because suddenly there is no other institution, it's just you and your kids. So the parents really have to play that role. If the parents are not ready, then actually you can end up with a situation where it's worse than send your kids.
Also to add in, I have some friends who are very sheltered, so they just stay at home and they literally just study all day. And I find it very wrong because you have to interact with more people. I mean, they don't even know what sex is, and they can't even treat women like properly because they never met a woman before, and then they were just like, cooties, don't touch me. So I just find it's like you have to interact with more people. And if you're living under a rock, how are you going to face the real world?
Okay. Yes.
I have to go, but I just cannot believe you all yet until I ask this question. We are doing some seminars on protect the house, and it's about pornography. So you know how bad and how it's happening, and age 12 to 17 is the most critical addicted to pornography. So help me to help your friends. How best can you all, with all your parents, very close to you, and researchers have said that most of these addicted teenagers are those with parents which are too busy and even they realize that their children are addicted to that. Can you just help me to help your friends? How best can this, you're all on internet and whatnot, so how best can you help these teenagers, especially in Malaysia now?
I think it's this addiction to pornography, it's really a difficult problem. Like with most things you're addicted to, like alcohol or drugs, whatever it is, it's something within the mind. And I think something that's very lacking in the education here, especially in Malaysia, is that we're not taught the capabilities of our mind, how to understand it and how to use it. So I think it really starts there. You should emphasize more on, building up the kids from their mindset, perhaps like being able to conquer their own demons, give them the tools on how to do that, and just be able to understand who they are. And yeah, because this is just like a side effect from not having that, I think.
And a lot of parents, they blame their children's addiction to porn because of internet, so they would ban their children from internet. And I don't think that's the solution, because you have to make them understand the concept of internet and make them understand why they can't watch porn and why this addiction is really important to other people. So I feel like the only solution to this is to educate them and not to ban them from porn websites or from internet, because if you if you take away their phones or something, they can still go outside and they can still go and explore them by themselves, and that's just even worse than watching porn. So
that answers the question. Yes, yes. Okay.
I also think, it's not just about saying, no, don't do this, this is bad. It's, telling them why you should do this, what are the values that are being affected. So education is one way of doing it, and I think you should teach your children why you don't do these things. For example, you want to be a moral, upstanding citizen, so you have to learn why you want to be a moral, upstanding citizen. But beyond that, as a child, you also have to have some sort of accountability to your parents. I think, being able to talk to my parents closely, we would go out with friends, then when we come back, we would go to their rooms and tell them about what happened in our day. We talk to them over our dinners, over our lunches. So being able to talk to someone and learn from them and be accountable to them also helps to mold your kids into sort of person you want them to be. Of course, they are their own persons.
Thank you. Bye. You want to talk a little about porn and that? Next year. Okay. Okay. All right. We have 15 minutes on the clock for the venue.
So maybe some of the, we have some homeschooling families at the back. If you guys want to share anything, number of us at the back, I'll just go through. Yes, Haja, you want to share anything? Yes? Yes? On? Oh, you on? Want to speak? Haja? Haja? No? Oh, sorry, it's Emily. Oh, sorry. I have to change my glasses. Okay, sorry, Emily. Okay. You want to share something? Anybody else? No? Alright. If there's none, then I'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much. We have another 15 minutes before we have to clear the space at 1. So, yeah, you can go and mop them after this. Thank you so much for your sharing. It has been very, very beneficial for me the most, I think. Alright, thank you so much, and I apologize for any shortcomings of the event from the beginning to the end. If you need any help getting into the tribe or anything, you can contact any one of us or the tribe master at the back. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.